is an epidemic of mass murder being committed by a virtual army of unidentified assassins. It seems to be a sudden, general explosion of mass homicide. Consistent reports from witnesses to the effect that people who acted as though they were in a kind of trance were killing and eating their victims prompted authorities to examine the bodies of some of the victims. Medical authorities in Cumberland have concluded that in all cases, the killers are eating the flesh of the people they murdered.
Incredible as they seem, are not the results of mass hysteria. First eyewitness accounts of this grisly development came from people who were understandably frightened and almost incoherent. Officials and newsmen first discounted their eyewitness descriptions as being beyond belief. However, reports persisted. Medical examinations of some of the victims bore out the fact that they had been partially devoured. I think we have some late word that's just arriving, and I'll interrupt to bring this to you. This is the latest disclosure in a report from National Civil Defense Headquarters in Washington. It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. A widespread investigation of reports from funeral homes, morgues, and hospitals has concluded that the unburied dead are coming back to life and seeking human victims. It's hard for us here to believe what we're reporting to you, but it does seem to be a fact. When this emergency first began, radio and television was advising people to stay inside, behind locked doors for safety. Well, that situation has now changed. We're able to report a definite course of action. Civil defense machinery has been organized to provide rescue stations with food, shelter, medical treatment, and protection by armed National Guardsmen. Stay tuned to the broadcasting stations in your local area for this list of rescue stations. This list will be repeated throughout our news coverage. Look for the name of the rescue station nearest you and make your way to that location as soon as possible.
No longer seek occupancy in private residences, no matter how safe or well protected they may be.
Everybody maybe 5% of the food available in the human body.
The kind of thing.
With that small amount, the body is usually intact enough to be mobile when it revives.
What are you saying? I mean, you scientists.
Dummies!
You're suggesting.
Dummies! Dummies!
Excuse me. Listen, quiet.
One wonders whether it's worth saving. Why don't we drop bombs on all the big cities?
You're probably serious.
I'm deadly serious. What are the choices? They won't run out of food, young lady. That's the problem, you see. And they won't run out of food while we're still alive.
We can lift you out to safety. Please answer my call if you can hear me.
We've got to remain logical. We've got to. There's no choice. It has to be. It's that or the end.
Hey, it's Greg Nicotero. You are, or if you're not, should be watching Alpha Romero on YouTube.
Here we are. We are live. Happy Saturday night to you all. And we are officially on the road to Living Dead weekend. If I sound a little congested, if I sound like I've been underwater all day or something like that, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold or allergies or something, but I'm hanging in there tonight, guys. I got, should be all right. I got a little bit of Grandpa's old cough medicine here if I need to take a swig. But how's everybody doing out there? Hope you're doing well. We are just a couple of weeks from Living Dead weekend. It seems like just yesterday we were just getting home from Living Dead Weekend, and I went through that week of just depression and just like back to reality. But we're headed back to Disney World here soon, and joining me tonight to talk about all of that, we got a little roundtable discussion here with some regulars from Living Dead Weekend. We're all going to be there this year. We're going to talk about it, possibly joined a little later on by some other folks. But let me bring on here. We'll go here. I'll give you the big intros, guys. Up first, you guys know him. He's been on the channel a couple of times. He's the Romero archaeologist, as I call him. He is the man behind the Unearthing the Undead series that Image 10 is doing on Facebook and the Night of the Living Dead group. The man who's solving every mystery that can be solved in the world of Romero. We'll bring him on now. Mr. John Vulo, what's going on? How are you?
You're very kind, thank you.
You like that? You like the Romero archaeologist thing, or do you have something else you prefer? I don't know what else to.
No, because it's a weird position to be in because I don't feel like I, of great stature. I feel like I enjoy finding this stuff out and telling you guys, like other nerd kind of people. I'm just sort of lucky that I have a bit of an in, and I have, I guess, enough time and insanity to kind of break all that stuff down. But I tell people it's not like I have some sort of magic wand that I have something different from everybody else. Well,
you're doing something. You're doing something different, man. Because there's been plenty of people that have been looking for this information for years, and somehow, some way, you come along and it's like, oh, okay, I know where to look. I know where to find this shit. So,
maybe some stories will come up on somehow how I found some of the people, but a lot of it, sometimes it's luck. It's just asking the right people, and a lot of it's just digging online. So it's like people have looked, but they might not look as hard because I have to make sure to say I've done everything. So that means look through every Facebook comment. Like if some website posts a picture from Night of the Living Dead, someone might say my uncle was in the film, and then I got to go through. Might not turn up anything. That's how we found the Super 8 film. It was a comment that somebody left on a photo.
It's amazing It's amazing what social media can bring to the surface. It's one of the good qualities of social media that I'll always defend.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be able to do this if it was like 10 years ago, because there's so much material that's online that's easily searchable that even if I had like the photos and stuff that I'm lucky to have now, I wouldn't be able to like look through the Pittsburgh phone book from 1967 or go through the newspaper archives and stuff. So there's a lot of modern stuff.
Everything's kind of online now, and there's access to a lot of things that you didn't have access to beforehand. Yeah, definitely.
I'm just bringing it in, bringing it under one roof.
Right. Well, I appreciate you joining me tonight, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you again this year's Living Dead Weekend. We'll just kind of chop it up tonight and see what the plans are and what's coming up. And another guy's going to be joining us. He was visited last year for the first time. His first time at the mall, and he pretty much documented everything that he did in Pittsburgh, in Monroeville, in the mall, Living Dead Weekend, and I assume he's going to be doing the same thing this year. So if any of you guys are not able to make it this year, Robert, I know you commented that you weren't going to be able to make it. Definitely subscribe to this man's channel, Mr. Synth Addict. Hey. What's going on, man?
Behind door number 2. Yeah, great to be here. Thanks. Since this may be the last one, at least at the mall ever, you can bet I'm going to document the shit out of this thing. If you thought I'd document a lot last year, so I hope so, man. I'm going to wear myself out this time, but it's for a good cause. So definitely check out the stuff. I'll do live as much as I can, but as you guys know who've been there, the signal in the mall sucks, except for that area where the clock tower was.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do.
It's like the one good spot in the mall where you can kind of get some pretty good reception. Yeah.
Exactly, or outside. So if I'm walking around the mall, I have to do local videos and upload them later. So
either way, it's going to be there, and thank God you're doing that because y'all know I'm pretty terrible about. I just get lost and involved in stuff, and I completely forget to record, take pictures, or do anything. So that's just kind of how I am. Yeah, I'm just in the moment. But up next, another guy joining us, first time on the channel, first time actually on the stream, regular in the chat. Been wanting to talk to him for quite a while. He is the writer and director of the latest Romero documentary, George Romero's Resident Evil, available now on Apple TV, Google Play, Amazon Prime, and hopefully sooner rather than later on Blu-ray, DVD, home video, beta, whatever we can get it on.
Beta.
Brandon Salisbury, what's going on, man? Good to have you.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, I've been wanting to get you on for quite a while, and I figure I know you're going to be at Living Dead Weekend. I know you've been pretty much every year that I've been, and it's like I said, it's like two ships passing in the night. I've seen you, and it's like, but we've never actually stopped and had a conversation. So I'm glad to get you on, man. Looking forward to hanging out and kind of catching up on lost time. But how have you been, man?
I've been very busy.
I can imagine.
Got a lot of projects going on. We're finishing up some stuff. We shot another film back in the fall that I produced and financed. So that was with some of the people that worked on the documentary. So I think in around the time I'm headed to Living Dead Weekend, the final cut will be done. So then that one goes off for distribution as well. So
very cool.
Just working on the next project.
Yeah, man, that's what you got to do. You got to just keep going, keep working, keep producing, keep creating. Looking forward to what's the next project you're doing? What's that? It's coming out.
Right now, I'm working on an adaptation of the horror video game Faith: The Unholy Trinity. It just got released on the Switch last October, so I negotiated for the rights of it. So I'll be hopefully directing that. So
okay, very cool. So yeah, you just one thing after another. Awesome, man. Yeah. You definitely deserve. So definitely want to talk to you about what you got going on. But got a man waiting, last guy waiting here, sitting there patiently, arms crossed, waiting to hop on. You all know him. It's Mr. Matt Landrum. What's going on, Matt?
Gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
Oh no, you sound like a robot.
Do I? Oh, yeah. I had a feeling. And how about now?
Yeah, you're still robotic.
You might have to rejoin. It could be a bad connection.
Yeah, I think it's my headphones and my microphone. How's that? Is that better?
No.
No.
You sound like a Dalek from Doctor Who.
Okay. Give me 1 minute.
Okay.
I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
I'll be right back.
All right.
It could be a bitrate thing for his connection. Yeah.
Could be. So Matt will be back with us in just a second. I give him that the big intro. I was like, oh yeah, he's waiting. He's ready to get in, and then he's like, very cool. Thanks to again to all you guys for joining me tonight. Let's see what we got in the chat tonight. Synth is also in the chat tonight. What's going on, man? Bonnie Bailey, of course. What's going on, Bonnie? Hello. Good to see Bonnie as always. Robert says, I'm looking forward to this one, but unfortunately I will not be able to make it to Living Dead Weekend. That's unfortunate, man. I was hoping you were going to be able to pull it together and make it happen. But like I said, subscribe to Synth's channel, and it's basically like you're there with us, because he's got that camera rolling at all times. So he's going to be uploading all kinds of shit all weekend long. Stezio DeCardi, what's going on, Stezio? Evening ghouls, just got home from a 12-hour shift. Don't know how long I can hang. Hope y'all have a great holiday weekend. Well, no worries, man. Working a 12-hour shift. Hey, if anything, just let us play in the background. We'll put you to sleep with our our soothing voices, I guess. Ziggy's in the house. What's going on, Ziggy? Man, I wish I could have met George. Have you guys met? How many of you guys have actually met George? There's Matt.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Much better, yeah.
Yeah, much better.
Sweet.
There you
awesome.
Go.
Thank you.
Human
Sorry
voice.
about that.
You're good. So Matt, I know you never got a chance. Did you get a chance to meet George? I can't remember.
No, never had an opportunity
right.
to meet George. Yeah. Am I sounding like shit again?
We're back, yeah.
Yeah.
God damn it. All right, give me a minute. I'm sorry.
We'll work it out the first 15 minutes here, but John, I don't remember. I don't think you ever got a chance to meet George.
No, it's one of the big regrets of my life. This is kind of like my paying back. It seems like all these people that have meant so much to me, like these celebrities, I've never met. So all the things that I do is like my, I guess, repaying for you idiot, you never went and you found these people. You didn't go and see George. So now this is like my contribution. Because I'm relatively new to the convention thingy. I never had any interest for autographs or meeting people or whatever. So it's now that I'm in it a bit, and meeting all these people, it's really a hard pill for me to swallow when I see old photos, and I know everybody in that photo, and there's George, and I'm just like, and it's not that I only became a fan of this film now. I've been a fan of it for 30 years, and I just never bothered to go and do those things. So it's a big regret. It's one of the things that drives me to, like, do this stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of the same way. Well, like I did get to meet George back in 2008. It was the Texas Frightmare weekend. I've talked about it before. George was there, Ken Foray, Scott Reiniger. I mean, pretty much everybody from day, everybody from night. I met Bill Heinzman, George Casana, like all these people that are no longer with us. And it was like after that event, I was just kind of like, all right, I've done my convention thing. I've met pretty much everybody I was kind of wanting to meet, and then I didn't go to another convention for years after that. And now looking back, it's like I really regret not going to a lot of these because there were so many other people that I would have loved to have met that were doing conventions. I know Donald Rubenstein and who else was it? Was at like a Cinema Wasteland or something some years back. It was Donald Rubenstein and Sarah Venable from Martin was at a. Yeah, she was at a Cinema Wasteland, and I was, and that's not too far from where I'm at. I could have made the trip, but it just wasn't on my radar because I wasn't doing a whole lot of conventions at the time. What about you, Brandon? Did you ever get a chance to meet George?
I had an opportunity to, I want to say 2015 or 2016, and something came up that I couldn't go, and I just remember thinking like I'll see him next time.
Mm-hmm.
And it never happened. So, I mean, a lot of my regret for never meeting George was really put into the documentary because I wanted to show my love and respect for him. And then ultimately the sadness I felt at not ever being able to meet him.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely that's you point out something that I hear a lot of people, and myself included. That's one thing that I've always got to remind myself is, it's like you always say like, oh, I'll get him next time. I'll see him next time. I'd say that's kind of what happened to me with Ella May, and we'll talk about her in just a second. But it's like at that last Living Dead weekend in October in Evans City, she was there. And I was like, I would just kept going by her table, and she was always talking to people, and I was like, I'll come back, and I never got a chance to really talk to her or meet her, and I was just like, oh well, she does a lot of these, I'll get her on the next run, I'll get her on the next one, I'm sure she'll be at the next Living Dead weekend, and that was the last one. I'm pretty sure that's the last one that she did was that year, so I just never got the opportunity to. So yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind, guys. It's like, you think, and especially if you're a fan of these older films, I mean, Night of the Living Dead's almost 60 years old now, it's like they're not, and talking, this year's Living Dead weekend, you got pretty much as complete of a reunion as you can get for Night of the Living Dead. It's like now or never for some of these people, especially with, the event kind of being up in the air. We don't really know when the next time we're going to get all these people together in one place. So yeah, that's definitely important to keep that in mind.
This year has been tough. There was Lee Holohan, who's in the Autopsy of the Dead documentary. He didn't really, I think he might have worked for Hardman. He helped out on some special effects stuff for Night, but he really wasn't like a part of it. He passed away in November. I just learned by accident that Don Boston passed away, who I just found, and I had
yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, and I had posted. Actually, we had put him up online after he had passed away. I had no idea. I wrote a little Facebook thing. Like I messaged him on January 4th that to get a bio to put online, and he gave me one on the 12th, and he said something that they were going to use this for his obituary. And I said, oh, that's a little morbid, but hopefully that it's not anytime soon. And we put it up there and had no idea that 2 weeks later he was gone. So we lost him. We lost Andrew Gass, someone I found.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to him personally. I talked to his son. We lost him in February. And Dave James in March. And Ella in a few days ago. So it's just it's been really, that's why I'm also working really hard and annoying people with this stuff, because you'll see even some of the people that we're going to put up, we just missed them. A couple of people, they passed away like a year ago or 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's unfortunate, but that's why it's like you just have to work really hard. And that same thing, you just don't know, because I was there with Ella, and you think, oh, everything's fine. These people are, you see her, she's walking around, she's you know, she's not like infirm. You know, she
Yeah.
looks like she's in good health.
And she was
And then-
she always seemed so full of life too. I mean, even in like I mentioned before we got on, it's like in the one of the latest Sean Clark Horror's Hallowed Grounds videos that he did with Larry for the Night of Living Dead locations. Ella makes an appearance, like she's featured in it because she lives, like her house was right next to where they shot at that farmhouse. So, and then that was always kind of one of those things that, like I remember going by there last year with Will, and it was just like, oh, there's Ella May's house, and it's like, oh, that's just kind of a part of the tour. That's part of the location. It's like, oh, there's Ella May's house, and then there's the mailbox from, you know, you can see in the movie, you know. And from everything I've ever heard about LMA was just like, you know, you could just walk up, knock on her door, and tell her you're a fan of the movie, and she'll just welcome you in. And because she still had like the prosthetic that her husband had on his hand, she still had that, like just little stuff like that, and photos and all that.
Yeah. So luckily we got those photos. I don't know what'll happen with everything, but it's like that. It's like with Sharon. When I found Sharon last year, it was like 2 weeks before the event that they wanted to get her to Living Dead weekend. Like I hadn't even talked to this woman. And it's like their same spirit that made them go, yes, I'll attend this convention that I don't know anybody in, except for like Russ and these weird people just found me out of nowhere. Same thing with Ella, like inviting these people in and talking about the film. It's like that's the spirit that got them into the film in the first place. That kind of like, yeah, this will be fun. This will be great. And it really carries over, you know, and then you meet them and you go like, yeah, this is like who they are.
It's just like it's Evan City. What else is going on? Like, of course, let's go do this, you know. And it's amazing that she was still there all those years, same house, didn't, you know, just same location.
Her,
you know?
Her last name is Kohler, which is the street that the road is on, and she lived, you know, and the other one is Zoe. Oh my God, I just had it in my head. Yeah, Zoli. I think it's Zoli Street or whatever. That house that you see in the film, the White House, her family like lived on that property like before then. That was like their area. So that whole family has been there for.
So it's just like a little holler or something for that family. It's like everybody was.
Is this is this the White House near the bridge that you're talking about?
Yeah, that wasn't her house, I don't think, but it was that area, that property that's like north of there. They had that property and they lived the Kohlers, and that's what with the Zoli. That's how I'll mention talking to Ella, because that was her nephew, I believe. So those names, those street names, are from the people that live there. That's how long that they've been there.
That says a lot. Did you, Matt? I know you didn't get a chance to meet Ella, right? You never met Ella May?
No, didn't have an opportunity to meet her either. I was actually planning on going by there this year, just to see if I could say hello. And then when I found out she was ill, I was thinking about going by and, you know, giving some condolences or something. But yeah, it's unfortunate that she passed. So,
Brandon, did you ever meet Ella May or have any interactions with her?
No, I did not. You know, that's the unfortunate thing is, like, I came into the convention scene late. I've only been going for, I want to say 6 years now. So like a lot of these people I haven't had an opportunity to meet, or, you know, because of, it always feels like a weekend is a lot of time until you're there. And then by the time it's over, you realize, wow, there's so many more people I wanted to meet. So many more things I wanted to do.
There's never enough time. That's the thing. You know, that's one of the reasons we're taking an extra 2 days to get up there. It's because there's never enough time to do all the things that you want to do, or meet the people that you want to meet. And yeah, I don't know. It's a shame. So
that's why I'm glad the mailbox zombie guy records all the seminars, because I'm running around shooting stuff, talking to people, and I go, I missed another seminar.
Yeah. Michael Tommaso, and if you ever have an opportunity to meet him, he's so cool, dude.
I interviewed him on my channel. He wanted to talk about his experience on Day, so I have a little video of him.
I when I went down to Sanibel in Fort Myers, I reached out to him, and he invited me and my family over to his. I guess he and his brother have like a bike shop, like a bicycle shop, and he invited us over to kind of hang out and spend the day, and we just. He's got like the Phantasm 3, the hearse from Phantasm 3,
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, he's got all
wow.
kinds of collectibles, and he's a fan too. He's got like a huge George Romero wall full of autographs and shit. So, but super cool dude. If you see him at the convention, say hello. He's always running around, like you said, recording just like you, Synth.
Yeah.
And photographing, doing all kinds of stuff. So he's a rad guy.
Well, he said he got involved in Day because he knows Kyra. So going way back.
Yeah, he's friends with Kyra. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, every time you see him at any Living Dead weekend I've ever been, he's always got the camera set up, filming every panel discussion, everything. It's like, so I bet he's got a hell of a collection of stuff that he's because I miss a lot of those panel discussions too. Because I mean, it's like you said, it's like you're running around, you're doing this and that. You got you're trying to meet people, trying to get autographs. You're hanging out outside, on a smoke break or something. You're all over the place, and you're like, oh, I'm going to sit down for this. Which is one thing I guess we could discuss. I don't know if they've changed it or if they got to do something else planned. But a lot of those, that's one of my big gripes about Living Dead Weekend is the panel discussions, because unless you're right up there on close to the stage, it's really hard to hear some of the time because of the acoustics of the area.
There's too much reverb,
happening.
And they don't have any baffling, or it's just the sound
I mean,
guy's having a hell of a time with the things.
Yeah, it's a mall. It's not made for that. You know,
you can do it though. You could focus it. You could do a better job with the speakers.
Yeah. Depending on what resources you wanted to throw at it and what time and money you want to spend on it, sure. But if you see Kevin's constantly running around like a chicken with his head cut off. I mean, I can only imagine that's the last thing he's concerned about.
Yeah,
true. But I mean, some of these people, it's the only time you'll get to hear them talk. So you want to document that. And if it sounds like ass, then it's kind of frustrating. So
that's kind of the constant, the one thing that people I've always heard say is like, oh, that's the one thing that could be improved on is some of the panel discussion. Because the one they had in Evans City at the Steam Fitters Center or whatever the hell it was called, that was fine because I mean it was like it was a stage. It was kind of supposed to, it was meant for that. So I'd really like for them to do it and just kind of like maybe that little room that used to be a Hollister or whatever, where they do like some of the screenings and stuff. Something like that would be perfectly fine. But I mean, it is a cool location because it's just right there in the center of everything. So it's kind of cool. You can just be going up the escalator and kind of just listening along while you're doing whatever. But yeah, it is a little difficult to hear sometimes. But
I actually did some experiments. I've actually done some de-reverb algorithms on some of the videos. I might have to re-upload them so you can actually hear them better. So
that'd actually be pretty cool. Kirk Redgate, what's going on, Kirk? Says, hey, Sad, I won't get to experience Living Dead Weekend. Wish I could join you. Have a good one. Oh, you're not that far, man. You're only, across the ocean. So it's just a quick boat ride over. You'll be fine. Let's see. Mayor's in the house. What's going on, Mayor? Says, hello, everyone. Paul Farver is in the house. What's going on, man? Says, what's going on, fellas? Less than 2 weeks. Yes, sir. Snuck up in no time. Saying hey to everybody. Justin Smith saying Uncle Bill no-showed. Yeah, Uncle Bill's running late. He said he was out and about today. He's a little later than he was thinking he was going to be, so hopefully he will show up a little bit later on. But he's got carte blanche. He can kind of pop in whenever he wants, I guess.
Along the lines of all the sad news, is just more reason for people to see these people as soon as you can, while you can. Because I bumped into Stan Winston at SIGGRAPH many years ago before he died, like 6 months before he died, in a lobby somewhere. I recognized him a mile away. I go, Stan Winston, and talked to him for about 5 minutes. He was super nice, and then 6-7 months later he was dead. So
yeah,
it's he wasn't that old. He just had cancer, I think. So.
Mm-hmm. And with Ella, it happened to be sudden. So with how even I learned, Jim might have known. He never told me, but because we have all those photos, I was trying to find some of the people that were in the area and stuff. So I said, we've never talked to Randy Burr's son, Randy Burr Jr. So I called him up, and at least I got in touch with him. We talked a little bit, and he mentioned actually he's in the Crazies as one of the soldier guys. Him and his friend John Cash Dollar. And he goes, who might know? Rick Zoel. So I went, all right. And I called him up and I talked to him. well, I mean, I sent him an email and he called me up, and it turned out that I didn't realize that that Ella May was his aunt. I went, oh, okay, yeah, I know Ella. Da, da, da. So he was in Florida, and he said, this was early May, early this month. And he goes, well, I'm going to fly down to Pittsburgh, and I have send me the photos, and I'll look and we see, if they recognize any of the, it's really not even for any of the extras, but some of the people that were just hanging around watching the shoot. So I said, yeah, it'd be nice, and maybe I can talk to them or whatever. So I hadn't heard from him. I think I sent him a message, like, because he's not an email person really. So I said, did you get the the photos and whatever? And then he had called me like the week before and basically just said, yeah, I'm, get to Pittsburgh, but Ella May's not doing well. They moved her to hospice care. And I was like, oh my God, like I had no idea. And, I'm like, yeah, obviously this stuff is not that important, like not going to have her. Can you look at these photos kind of thing? So, and then he called me after she passed, he called me the next day to let me know. I said, yeah, well, we already know. We already knew. But I said, like, did you even know? And he's like, no, but like even in November last year, she was doing her thing. And then all of a sudden it all just came to a head. And she basically just said, like, I lived a long life. I'm happy to, I'm ready to go. And that was that. So when I found out, I told Jim and Gary, I said, hey, I don't know if you guys know this, but, she's not doing it, but it's not my business to put it out there. And then they put it out there, and it would just happen to be that day. So, I didn't even think that they were going to put anything out there. And it was just by accident that I was able to find out that just talking to that's why Jim might have known, because I'm pretty sure that he would have had her for the convention.
Yeah,
But
that's what I was thinking. That's why I was kind of concerned, because I was like, they were getting everybody else, and I was kind of like, man, I'm surprised Ella May hasn't, been announced for this yet. But, I was like, okay, maybe they're waiting, and because they just recently announced Gary, I was like, oh, obviously, Gary's got to be there, and they just now recently announced. I was thinking maybe it'll be last second, but it's getting closer and closer, and no Ella May. I was like, well, that's kind of concerning,
But he never let me know. I saw him. We there was a Day of the Dead convention, like a cast reunion at Chiller, that was in the end of April, and we BS'd about a ton of stuff, and he never brought it up. So either he reached out and they didn't let him know, or he knew, but it'd been weird that he wouldn't have told me, because these are all people that we know. Sometimes that'll come out, but yeah, just from what Rick told me, it was just sudden. She was fine, and then all of a sudden she wasn't fine. I don't know, what had happened. I didn't dig into it. It was because I said, like, had I had known that she wasn't feeling well, or you knew that she wasn't feeling well, I wouldn't have asked you to do this thing. So I figured it must have been so sudden that he didn't even know it was as bad as it actually was. So terrible.
I know she her viewing was yesterday. I know she was buried today in Butler. I'm wondering if anybody was able to go to that. Have you heard anything?
No, I know when I sent the email, Gary said that he was going to stop by. So this was probably like a week before. But as far as I know, I don't think so. I mean, it would be probably Gary, maybe some of the, like, Russ, someone that's really close. But as far as I know, I haven't heard anything.
And he's Gary's the one that said it to me a couple years ago when I finally met him. I'm just trying to get as many Night autographs as I can on my poster, and I said that to him. I said, hey, I'm trying to get as many of y'all in here as I can, and he just stopped writing and looked up at me. He said, you better hurry. Like that. And I was like, yeah. I mean, not to sound morbid, but yeah, you're right. So,
yeah, I mean, you forget, like, Night is almost 60 years old. Like, that's to like a 60-year-old movie to me in my 20s, or whatever, would have been like Frankenstein or something. Like, that's how, like, and it's crazy to think it, but then again, you realize, like, oh yeah, I'm kind of getting older too. It's like all the movies I loved are getting older with me.
Yeah. Well, think about 20 years ago, like all that shit that you were into 20 years ago. 20 years before that was the 80s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's crazy to think about.
How about this one? Night of the Living Dead is 1 year older than I am. So
there you go.
But it's that's why I'm working so hard, because you just don't know, and I don't want that information, sort of
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're doing it, man. I'm so glad you're doing it. I know you mentioned you're starting some work on, like, Jack's Wife. There's always Vanilla and stuff like that.
That's just a pet project, because it was like, I just want to see if we can name some of these people that are credited but don't have, a character. And it turns out that a bunch of them are wrong, on IMDb. And that's where I'm trying to learn. So, like, I'll tell you that I learned. So, Vanilla's done. I did all the Vanilla. Jack's Wife, there's a couple of people that I'm not sure of. And Crazies is pretty much done. But I was talking to Gornick at the event, and I was asking him about Wally Cook, because he's credited in the Crazies, and he also wrote the amusement park and is in it. Now, I think we talked about this when you were showing it. So I was showing him some stuff, but the problem is, like, he'll know what he looks like, but I don't know what pictures to show him. You know what I mean? And I want him to say, oh, that's him. So I have a classmates.com subscription, not subscription, but at least I went on there and I found Walton Cook, and I found his high school yearbook. And I said, okay, now I at least have an idea what he looks like. And I went into the amusement park and I found him. He's one of the Barkers. He's the guy that's talking about with the straw hat about the construction stuff. So that's Wally Cook. So I took that. I said, oh, I think this is him. And I emailed Gornick, hey, is this him? And he goes, yeah, that's him. He's also the guy in the Crazies that says, oh, you ain't taking me no place. And I went,
oh, that's him.
I said, oh, I thought that was Richard Lewicki, because that's how he's credited on IMDb. And again, the rule that I break the most is my own rule, assuming that somebody else is correct. So I, for so long, thought that was Richard Lewicki. And I'm trying to find someone else in that film that I think might be in Night. So I'm, turning all over all this kind of stuff on this person.
Yeah, that's always kind of the interesting thing about IMDb, is that you don't really know who's putting that information in there.
Yeah.
And so you don't know if it's right or wrong most of the time.
Yeah, so I'm using the paper, newspapers.com. Image 10 gifted me a newspaper.com subscription, which was nice, because there's some things that I can't find on the Google News. And I found a whole bunch of really cool stuff that was just hiding there. And I said, oh, this is important. And this is, there was the infamous showing of Night of the Living Dead with the dramatization thing on the bottom. There's an article about that, and we have a date when that airing was, and that's going to be in the book. All these little things. Like, oh, now we have the article for it. So I said, well, if I have this stuff, a lot of these people are just regular actors. Let me see if I can find a photo of them. Oh, this is Val Stanley from Vanilla. He's the guy in the beginning with the mustache and this ball that's talking to Ray Lane. Okay, that's not this person.
Oh, the one that's in the music studio that's like, I can't hear you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm finding so it's that person, and because I feel like that stuff has to be archived somewhere, but it's important, and who knows? I mean, like, I'm not like going to go talk to these people. It's just to find out who they are, at least to give them that respect.
It's just to have like a record, a legitimate record of everything,
But with all that Night stuff, I always tell, Gary and Russ and stuff, I'm like, I'm sorry if I'm annoying, but I sort of need to be, because you guys have to tell me this stuff. So there was.
I always like Russ is like, oh yeah, John's probably going to ask about that, or he always brings you. I was like, oh yeah, John's probably going to figure that out soon, so don't worry about it.
I needed to have Russ call one of the ghouls in the film, because it was someone that we had difficulty contacting. So he had called me up out of the blue. I was like, hello, oh my god, it's Russ, hi, and the number that I gave him wasn't correct. So I said, okay, use this number, and then he called me back. It said, oh, yeah, the number was right. And I said, well, I have you on the phone. And then we ended up talking for like 2.5 hours. And I'm sitting there and I'm typing. I'm like, I'm sorry if I'm doing, because I'm trying to write these things that you're saying in terms of like how Al Croft got, why Russ left, and how Larry Anderson got fired, and the Calgon stuff, because we have photos from the Calgon shoot, and we're trying to figure out who's who. And
the Calgon was great. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, all this kind of stuff. That stuff will probably all be in the book as well. Be able to find and ID certain people that
I'm looking forward to that, because there's a lot of new information out there that's going to be out there for the first time. I'm really looking forward to that. That's kind of what I eat up.
So speaking of IMDb, is it just someone with an IMDb Pro account can put whatever the hell they want up there? Who actually vets
pretty much. I don't know who vets it, but I know there's. Well, we know. Larry name dropped him. What was his name? Alex Vulich.
Sonic Al.
Sonic Al. I think he just goes in there and starts editing stuff.
Really?
I'm not sure how accurate it is. Yeah, I think all you have to have is a pro account.
So it's slightly better than Wikipedia then.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's kind of like Wikipedia for film. Yeah.
I tried to edit Night of the Living Dead one, and I went crazy with it. You know, like every mention of zombie, I switched the ghoul and said, well, this person was not the newscaster.
What is the deal with that? Is that like an Image 10 like?
Well, that's just like
thing to be like, okay, we're gonna separate zombie and ghoul because they're referred to as ghouls in the film, but they've always been like, oh, this is the first zombie film. So is the whole ghoul thing their way to kind of reclaim that term for this film specifically, or is that just?
I think it's just because of how they called him in that film. I mean, even
it's consistent.
zombie, zombie.
It is. I mean, it's consistent, but I've just wondered because it's like. I've just seen this like concerted effort lately, especially from like the Image 10 guys to be like they're ghouls, they're ghouls. It's ghouls. No, they're not zombies.
I mean,
they're
even
ghouls.
Don only said zombies once in the whole movie, right? So
and actually, and I made it because I got a copy of the book, and Jim was like, "Oh, just correct anything that you see in there." And I mentioned the word zombie is used once in the script for Night, so I said that has to be put in there somewhere. But it was like used in passing, like it's a zombie-like thing. It was like a description.
Oh, like a descriptor of how they act, zombie-like walk or something like that. Interesting.
Yeah, don't want to completely omit that. But the point that I wanted to make is I corrected every single thing in there, and I submitted it, and it got declined. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to bother with this. So if anybody has
funny how that works, all right?
Yeah, if someone has an IMDb account and they really want to help out, send me a message. And I'll send them a list of all the things that need to be corrected, because there's actors that are cast wrong. They have this person was the newscaster and they weren't the newscaster. Like someone has to be removed. Art Dubin was not in the film. He was like someone that worked for the what the hell is it? The Chiller Theater Expo. I was like, why is this guy credited? So there's a lot of little weird stuff in there. But I think if we're gonna do the George stuff, especially the early stuff, I mean, I thought if I can't do that, maybe I would just make a slideshow video of just all the people in vanilla. And this is this person, this is that person, because that's the only way
to do something with it. Yeah.
Because where else can I post this information? I can't post it in the Living Dead weekend.
And you could put a link in the comments of the movies in IMDb so they can find your video.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. So
do something with it. But I know Brandon, it's funny you're doing all this research for the early part of Romero's career. Brandon probably did a shit ton of research for the later half of Romero's career for the Resident Evil stuff. What was your process for that, Brandon? Because that's one, especially for the Resident Evil stuff in that time period for Romero, there's not a lot out there that's readily available for people to kind of get their hands on. I mean, outside, I guess, of the archive maybe, but where did you start? Where did you begin? How long were you kind of researching on that project?
I did at least 2 years of just constant research. And it wasn't just me. It was actually, I had a writing partner, Robbie McGregor. He had actually written an article about the production of the original Resident Evil film from when Constantine Film got the rights all the way up to the release of the film in 2002. So that's about 6 years of various information that was out there. So I had helped him a little bit with this article regarding some of the other writers that were at one time involved with the film. So I just went straight to him because I loved his article. I thought it was very in-depth, and he obviously had he really revered Romero. So I pitched him the idea. I was like, you want to help me research this? So we started just going through every imaginable source that we could. I had a lot of stuff stuck in the back of my head of remembering different articles, websites that once had information. He had a bunch of links as well. And then we also started tracking down magazines. He sent me so many magazine scans of just something that's just a talk about the film. And then we also had stuff on the commercial that George did. And I even remembered that there were chat logs around that time where, George is in like a chat where it's like, ask George Romero questions. And they were bringing up.
Yeah,
at the
I remember
time,
that.
Yeah, they were bringing up Resident Evil. Like, hey, have you started writing it yet? What's it about? And, he would be giving these responses. So we, we really tried to unearth everything imaginable that we could. And then as we continued to like lock people for interviews, they would say, hey, you should talk to this guy because he has stuff. And it would just keep going. It was like deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. So it's very interesting to be at the point where, you have, because of a lot of kind people, you have a much deeper understanding of the film and like what was going on, not only behind the scenes, but what George was trying to do. I think I now have every piece of artwork that Bernie Wrightson did for the film. Copies, of course, not the originals. And I think I've read just about every draft, and then also being able to look at some of the other stuff that was connected with the production. So it was a lot of work. Like just trying to make sense of everything. And then we still find things, there's stuff that we still uncover, and some of it's not necessarily related to George. Like we'd find another piece regarding like some of the troubled production, the development history, and you find out like some of the inner workings of like who was doing what to which person and who was coming up with which ideas. And, it was interesting, as someone that was reintroduced to George Romero around that time period, late 90s. I don't know. It's like going back in time and remembering all this stuff and being, it's like very nostalgic to be like, oh yeah, the Fangoria article that came out. And I remember this issue of PlayStation Magazine that had this article in it. It was just neat.
Oh yeah, because I mean that's kind of how I felt watching your film, is because I've talked about on here before. It's like Resident Evil was my introduction to the zombie genre, which led me to George, and like that's what got me started. I was young. I was at that right age where the first time I played Resident Evil 2 I was sold. I was like, oh my god, what are these monsters? They're just people, but they eat you, like. And I'm just like, oh, that's so interesting. And then it's like, that's what got me into it. And I remember all those online, like the websites.
Ribbon.
And okay, you got the ink ribbon. Good job. Definitely gonna need that.
That's cool.
Everything back there is Resident Evil, so it's I've become quite the collector. So, but
That's awesome.
like I love. I have a deep love for that video game, and part of the reason is because it led me back to Romero again. Because I had gotten introduced to Romero when I was like 5. Well, what the hell does a 5-year-old know about how important George Romero is? All I did was watch Night of the Living Dead and Creepshow and get the shit scared out of me. But, growing up and watching horror films, and then you go to the video store and, George was fortunate enough to have his name slapped above his titles, much like John Carpenter would.
Yeah.
You were making a statement. This is my film. And that really helped me because it cataloged in my head, those are the films that are too fucking scary for me to watch. But
those are the ones to avoid.
I would marvel at like the covers and read the backs, and then eventually once I played Resident Evil 2, which was January of '98, and then by March he was rumored to be attached to the movie. That's when I realized like I got to go back and watch all his films so I know what to expect with a Resident Evil film, and that's how I got introduced to him. So I have a huge love for Resident Evil. I mean, a large part of my collection is that, and I've always loved the games. So I love collecting the stuff. So the project was just a really, it was a combination of all these different things that I just have this huge adoration for.
Yeah, that was it was like I said, it was kind of like a full circle thing for me because it's like I said, Resident Evil's what got me into it. I got into the games, and then my Uncle Mark, who's will pop into the chat sometimes. He was the family member that was huge into horror. Like he like Clive Barker, like he was a big fan of Stephen King, like Romero, and so like he was the one that I first discovered. He was playing Resident Evil, and I saw it. I was like, what is this? And he told me, he was like, if you like this, there's a zombie movie called Night of the Living Dead. You should probably check out. I was like, okay, I've heard of that title before because I think I'd heard it in like Look Who's Talking, because Kirstie Alley at one point in the movie says I look like I could star in Night of the Living Dead, so I knew that title. It's just like everybody on Earth knows the title Night of the Living Dead. Even as a child, I knew what that title was, but I'd never seen the movie. And then I saw Savini's Night 90. That was the first, because I was just like, I was at a video store, I saw Night of the Living Dead on the videotape, and I was like, oh, that's the one they're talking about. And then the rest is history. I see that, and then I found out like, oh, that's a remake and all this shit. So like seeing the documentary was just like a full circle thing. I was just like, and it took me back to that time period because I remember hearing all the rumblings, because I mean, you saw articles in not only horror magazines like Fangoria, but you also saw articles in video game magazines like IGN and all that. And I was reading all of that back in the day. So yeah, I just thought it was cool because there's so much. And if you go back on the Wayback Machine or whatever they call it, like I would love to go back and see some like the GeorgeARomero.com and the forums on there. I always talk about Homepage of the Dead. That was always a source of information. So
yeah.
That's actually, I wanted to, because I was looking at that. Does anyone have like an archive of those forum posts? Because I tried using the Wayback Machine on the website and I couldn't find anything.
Homepage of the Dead is still like functioning.
Up. The website is still there, but they changed to a different forum. So the server may have been dumped, because that happens with these like forum servers. I've been part of websites where they switch to something new and all the old stuff goes away. There is, unless someone actually like privately saves them, a lot of times it just goes away. So there's a chance that
it only digs down so deep. And some sites also use this thing called robots.txt, which blocks the site from being archived whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
you probably lost. Yeah. So you probably lost, 25 plus years of just amazing shit.
Damn. Yeah. Well, see, like I just went to that back to home. I every now and then I'll go back to Homepage of the Dead, see what's going on in there, and there's still people that'll post on those forums. Like I still see that all the time. So yeah, and I'll go back as far as I can to see, like I'll find like something I posted back in 2008 or whatever, and I'd be like, oh, and I'll read it. I'm like, God, I sound stupid. Like, what the hell is I talking about? Like, and then there's like somebody else on there is like, oh, you're an idiot. Like, what are you talking about? And it's like, oh God. Then it takes me back to the good old days of forums when people would just like talk shit to each other, like nobody cared. It was just like
sadly,
the Wild West back in the day.
The Usenet was first in, first out, so all the old posts that would have been really awesome for this stuff are long gone. So.
I've actually had it through like various research that I do, where I'd be like searching for something and I would find a result, like specifically what I'm looking for, and I go to click on it, be like, oh, finally I can get some information, and it's just me. It's like some post from 20 years ago. I'd be like, damn it, it's just me. Get the fuck out of here. I need to find someone else. It's just me. I found myself 20 years ago. Like, get out of here.
I remember
it's cringe. It'd be cringe.
I never did any of that stuff. Like I only joined the Night of the Living Dead Facebook group like 3 years ago, because I was always a fan, but I never like got involved. But I was always lurking. And I've said this before, I still remember the day, it was 1998, when they uploaded the mall directory, and I freaked out. I was so excited. I printed it out and everything. And actually, that's where I learned about Autopsy of the Dead, because I guess Jim was posting it somewhere, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I bought it, and I bought the I forgot the CD release of the film, of the soundtrack. What was it called? I can't remember, the original CD version of the soundtrack for Night of the Living Dead. And I ordered it from Jim. This was like, I don't know how long ago, 10 years ago, whatever. So it's funny.
That's a good word. I always felt like that's kind of what I was doing for years and years, was just lurking in the shadows. Like I wouldn't get too involved. like even like the first couple of years at Living Dead weekend, like I would see like, oh my God, it's Matt Blasey, or oh my God, there's Larry. It's like people that I had followed for years. It's just like these were my guys that I got. These are who I learned from over the years. I was like, I'd listen to WGON radio, or I'd follow them all through the years, and I'd see him and I'd be like, oh, I want to go talk to him, but I don't want them to think I'm an idiot or something. I don't want them to think I'm like, who's this guy? Like he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I just knew that Larry had the WGON YouTube channel because I remember finding all this, like, oh wow, this German documentary for Dawn of the Dead. I can't believe this exists. But I went in there knowing nobody. And that's what was kind of unusual. I only got into the Living Dead weekend because I visited the mall in 2006 and I got the 4K of Night, and I said, I remember when I drove to the mall passing by Evans City and just like, oh, it's right there, and I never went. And after I got the 4K, I was like, I kind of have the itch to go back there because it's been so long. And I wasn't part of the forums or anything or the Facebook group. And then once I watched it, I was like, hey, I should probably join the Facebook group. And I was like, oh, there's this like entire convention for this thing that I love. And I didn't ever hear about it. And I'm, pretty deep into the Romero stuff. I was like, oh, this would be great. This will be like a 1-2 kind of punch. I can go to Evans City, and I'm not an autograph person, but like I could just go and sit at the mall because I didn't want to talk to anybody because I don't want to bother anybody. And that's the other thing. I've been very privileged now to sort of be on the opposite side of the table, and pretty much every single person, you can really just go up to them and talk to them and not have to worry about like, oh, I feel like I have to pay, or you know what I mean? Like you have that, there's some people that like that's kind of pushy, but you go meet Mike Gornick, he'll talk to you for as long as you want about X, Y, and Z.
Well, hell, like John Rice last year, it was almost like he felt like, why would you pay me for this? Like he was just like, hey, you guys want to hear a story? Like, come on up. Like you guys want to know something? Like, hey, I'll tell you guys. What do you want to know? And it was just kind of like, it's a different Living Dead Weekend's kind of a different thing. It's just kind of like, it's almost like a reunion of sorts that everybody's just there to kind of have a good time and see each other again, once a year. And
it's so important to really put that forward because there might be some people that might want to go, but they're like, well, I don't know what to do there because I can't afford all these signatures and stuff like that. And I was like, no, so that's why I went, and I just happened to meet Jim. I had no idea what he did because he was a fan of some music videos that I made, and I had like, I sort of got entered into this, little world. But I was going there just to hang out. I didn't want to talk to anybody. Now that I've, been there enough, I've tried to tell people, you can go. And you can just talk to people and hang out and just have a good time there and not feel like you have to spend money. Of course, they would like you to spend money because that's what helps them.
That's exactly what I do.
Right. That's what it's turned into now for me, is like it doesn't even feel like I need to go to get autographs anymore. It's just going to see my friends again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's this whole community. Yeah,
I go to meet people, hang out. I don't get any autographs. I'm always.
I was going to say that's what you did last year, Synth. Like I don't think you got one autograph or anything, but you weren't. Even though you were bored or anything, it's like you talked to all kinds of different people, and it's just
it's
they're super friendly.
Yeah, because you can go, Brandon. I've talked enough.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, like, one of the things that I really love about Living Dead Weekend that maybe people don't realize that go to a lot of conventions is it's not, I don't know what you would call it, an autograph mill where like you stand in line, you pay this high dollar amount, get your autograph, and then they're like, okay, next. Like it's very much, I've always described it as it's a family reunion. For everyone involved, not just the actors and the cast and crew of George's film. It's a family reunion for everyone.
It is.
I feel like I'm going home every time. I feel like I feel every time I go there, it's this weird emotional experience. Like before I check into the hotel, we had to drive by the mall. I had to look at it. I had to stop in, and usually I will actually stop in and just make sure no one needs anything. Do you need help? It's like because so many people volunteer their time for this, and it feels like they need an army of like 200 people to get this thing set up, and it's like a handful of them. So anything I can do, you know, and it's usually they have it all done because they've been working all week. But then I'm there all weekend just haunting the place every possible second because I love that place. I love running into familiar people. I love running into brand new people I've met either online or just right there in the moment. And then, of course, I think I can't be the only one that does this. But
last year I specifically went to the. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I can't be the only one to do this, but on I always go home on Mondays. You know, it's like, okay, let's just get out of here. You know, it's over. I'm already starting to get upset. I'm sad that it's over.
It's those Sunday blues. Yeah, it's like that. Even that Sunday, you're just like, this is it.
So Monday, you know, we pack up, check out of the hotel. We got to go by the mall. We have to go in the mall. We take one last walk around.
Brandon, that's how I met you, man.
Yeah, it was actually
that's how I met you. We were doing the same thing. I was so fucking bummed that we were leaving, and I had to drag my family back one last time. They're like, "Oh God, this fucking mall again." I'm
so
like, "Come on."
My wife and I always get Gloria Jean's coffee. Stop at Gloria Jean's right there. So we always get a coffee, and then
it's good coffee.
Walk
is.
around the mall, and then we're down the road. So it's that's been the habit since I've been going there. Is always taking every possible moment, and I'm really satisfied that I have, just because with what the future is looking like.
Oh yeah. Last year I specifically went the night before the show just to get the vibe of the mall, since I'd never been there before, and just walk around as a normal mall. Although some stuff was starting to get set up, it still was a regular mall. It was kind of fun to see before and after.
And I wanted to add, and because pretty much Brandon said what I was going to say, just better. But the problem is the biggest shame is that you'll never be able to experience that family atmosphere unless you're actually there. You can talk about it, but you don't know, and that's the big shame for me, because like I said, had I had known, I would have been to every one of them.
Right.
But I'm not into the whole thing. But then when I got there and seeing it, I remember driving Christine and bringing her to her table, and Molly is it Molly McCloskey? I always get her first name wrong. I don't know why.
Molly McCloskey.
Yeah. I don't know how we got it wrong the last time, but she teared up, to see Chris. And it's not like for us, it's, for them, because they're excited to see everybody. It's not, and I've done other things before, like I do the chiller one, if there's night or, people there that I can sit around, and it's nice, but it's very, sterile. They got the Romero people there. They all know each other. But when you go to this event, everyone's there because everyone loves to be there. We've got it's a homecoming and a family reunion for the actors that haven't seen each other for a while, that know each other. Oh, how's how's the kids and how's this and that? And then for us to be there. And that's what also upsets me when I see, I bought the Martin thing, recently, the 4K, and listening to the interviews and stuff. And anytime I listen to these interviews of George, it really bums me out, because it's nothing that there's nothing I want to ask him. I've said this before, because there's no question that he would know that I would want answered. I'd love to just say, thank you. Look at what you gave us. This is the greatest gift. All these new friends that I made, and all these people that in a million years I never thought that, Mike Gornick, oh, I'm happy to see you. I brought you a little gift. I can't wait to see you next time. And I'm like, and it blows my mind that I had, 3 years ago, I'm watching the films like, oh, this is really nice. That this was a gift that George gave us all.
Right.
And that's the greatest tribute to his memory,
And that's, and I wanted to ask you guys this question, because I know the answer. But I know my answer, but I wanted to kind of pick your brains.
Why are you asking it, Matt?
Well, I know my
I know the
answer,
but I want to see if you guys
I want to know your answer.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
We're all fans of cinema. We all appreciate different films, different directors. But I want to ask you, why George? And my answer, and I'm going to get kind of deep in just a minute here, but the thing about George is George was a proletarian. He gave a shit about the blue collar. He gave a shit about people. And I think that's really what it is for me, because it comes through in his films, but more importantly, it comes through in us, in the fans. We care about each other, and that's reflective of him and his work. When I was a kid, Day of the Dead, that was my introduction. And that's such a dark, heavy movie, and it resonated so much with me. And, you know, going through the stuff that I went through as a kid and kind of feeling that isolation and stuff like that, seeing that film that George made, it made me feel like I wasn't alone. You know what I mean? And I wanted to, you know, I thank him for that every day. And that's why I think I return to Pittsburgh every year, is because it's a gift to that 12-year-old kid. You know what I mean? It's a gift to be able to go to this place and see these things and experience these things, but also it's a gift to see you guys and to hang out with you and to share these things with you, because I didn't have that when I was a kid. You know, we've talked about this. You know, all my friends, they were all into different shit. Nobody understood or spoke my language, but you guys do. And everybody in the chat does. Everybody that's at the convention does. You know what I mean? So that's what it is for me. I think that's why, you know, I love Fulci. I love, you know, all sorts of different directors. But I know George cared about people, and it makes me feel like he cared about me. And in sort of roundabout way, he does through you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll answer that, and then I guess we could just go around the round table, as they say. So for me, a lot of that of what you just said is very true. Like for me as well. Another thing about George was that he was very anti-establishment. He was punk rock, and I was very anti-establishment, very punk rock when I was a teenager, and was big into George. George would say, "I'm doing this. Like this is my vision. The Dawn of the Dead. I'm not cutting anything. Like just say no. We'll release it unrated. I want my vision out there." I love that about George, and the fact that George was anti-Hollywood. Like, I'll stay here in Pittsburgh and make these little movies with my friends. I'd rather do that than take a big payday from Hollywood to make whatever sterile thing they want me to make, you know, just to put my name on it or whatever. That always drew me to George, and then I think that's a big thing too. But like what you said, like the blue collar, he's the blue collar filmmaker. I've said that before. He's the blue collar horror director. It's like I love Argento, Fulci, Carpenter. Carpenter's kind of in the same vein a little bit, but Carpenter was definitely, I've said it before, is, you know, kind of he was not that Carpenter didn't have principles or like, you know, but Carpenter would take a job. Kind of thing. Right. It was like, okay, like Christine or something. It's like Carpenter said, oh, the thing didn't work, so I'll do Christine. And Carpenter hates Christine for whatever reason, but I like Christine. But George was just,
great movie.
Yeah, I love Christine. But George was just so uncompromising in times when, you know, he probably should have been, and most directors probably would have been. And it taught me to kind of stand up for myself and my beliefs. And
he had integrity.
Yes, and the idea that like, we don't have to go to Hollywood to make these movies. We can just make them right here in Pittsburgh. Like we just us. Like we don't need, you know, big budgets and all that. It's like, and I think he taught a lot of independent filmmakers that. Like, I mean, you listen to Tarantino talk about George, or, you know, a lot of those indie filmmakers in the '90s when they would talk about, you know, their influences and stuff. And George is, it's kind of like Kevin Smith makes movies in New Jersey. It's like nobody makes movies in New Jersey until George makes movies in Pittsburgh, and then all of a sudden Pittsburgh is a filmmaking hub, and you're getting Silence of the Lambs and Sudden Impact or whatever that fucking movie, the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. It's like all these movies start going to Pittsburgh, you know. So that was always inspirational to me. And when I would make my little movies in high school, that was my dream. I'm gonna be the next George Romero. And I knew that, like, working with, like, my cousins, friends, or whatever, I would always follow the Romero way of doing things. I would listen to their input. I was always interested. Okay, how would you do this? Like, anybody got any ideas? Because that was always the thing with George. Was like, he was open to ideas. So he was always collaborative. And I always tried to model myself after that. And he was a good role model to look up to in that way. So I don't know. There's a million different reasons, but that's a great question. John, what's your answer, sir? We'll go to you next.
I think that's the beautiful part, is that it's like this, it's a beautiful mystery. No one really knows why. Now, I'm not a film buff. I don't care about movies in general.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, and I think that's really interesting. Like, John could give a shit about most movies, but Romero, right. It's like that's the thing.
That's why I'm more curious about you than anybody, John.
You know, when I got older, I was just renting these movies randomly off of Blockbuster. And it's nice because this was obviously around the time of the internet, but it wasn't that popular. And it turned out, years later, all the movies that I have posters of, Night and Dawn and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween, are like the movies that everybody loves without realizing that pretty much they're also all independent films, or they were made, independently. But I was a guitar player. All I cared about was guitar stuff. But when I watched Dawn of the Dead, I said, this is the coolest movie I ever saw. I never found Night or any of those movies scary. I watched Halloween. I had all the Friday the 13th, but I always gravitated to George's stuff, and I have no idea why. And I think it's just George's personality that shines through in this ethereal kind of way. I can't describe it. You just get a sense of him as a person, which is weird because they're like horror movies, but they're not really horror. They're kind of fun. It's really hard to describe. I think it's just George's personality that sort of comes through. Like, you can almost have this like sense of how much fun that they were making it. You know what I mean? Like, you even get the impression that like the guy that made this film is probably like a big jerk, and then like, it's also part of it is
like Kubrick or something,
Yeah, you just watch those interviews and you go, yeah, man, he's just a cool guy. And also the layer of, you can watch the film like how I did, like an idiot, was just like, wow, look at how cool that is. There's zombies in the mall, and they have all this stuff, and then maturing and going, oh, it's about material possessions and how this stuff isn't important.
Consumerism.
Or then watching Night Riders and thinking, oh, it's actually about George, and then starting to, the page turns, and then you get to watch the movie in a different light, and the movie takes another dimension. You get to watch it with new eyes, and that blend of like, to me, this is really cool and this is really smart, I think is like part of how George, George skipped a couple of years in school. He they wanted to bump him up to he skipped 2 years of school and they wanted to bump him up to a third year, and his parents didn't let him, which is why he went to the Sutfield Academy, because it was like, you're done with high school. We don't know what to do with you. So they put him in another school. So you've got this like very smart, but also very lovable, fun-loving guy that just like, and it's funny because you watch those commentaries. I watched the Martin one, the one and with him and Donald and I'm like, this is great because George is having a great time. Just like, and it's never any detail stuff. It's very smart, but it's not pretentious. It's not like, well, I thought this out and I did this. We're like, we're just shooting stuff and we're doing this and we're having a fun time. Forget about it and that kind of stuff. And it's like, you can't help but just love who this guy is. And there is that enigmatic thing about him that people were just drawn. Christine said the same thing. People are just drawn to him, and it has to come through in his films where it doesn't for other people. Him and Carpenter and other guys have made all these great films, but they don't have this kind of you can go to the Halloween convention, but I always find those things kind of sterile because you have all these movies made by different people, all these different Michael Myers and everybody. I'm going to get some heat for this, but I think of it as the Star Wars for horror movies. That's how I think of Halloween. I love the Halloween franchise. I love Halloween 1. I told you I've got the signed thing from Daniel Farrens for Halloween 6, VHS that he sent to me from an AOL chat room. So I was there. But as I've gotten older and I've kind of looked at it, it seems like the Halloween stuff is kind of superficial, but the George stuff is very genuine. And that's what I mean. There's this like, je ne sais quoi about it that you just, why are we all connected? I have no idea. I'm glad that we are, but the beauty part of it is there's no answer. We just are.
Well, the family aspect of it too. It's like everybody that worked on a Romero film talked about it. It was like a family atmosphere. You see that in like Night Riders. Night Riders is a perfect example of like George encapsulating what it was like being on the crew of his films. Was like they were just a family. They worked together and traveled together and all that. And you still see it now in like at Living Dead weekend. It's like these people come together, and people that aren't even there to like have a booth or make money. Like Tommy Lafitte will just show up just to hang out and say hi to everybody. Jeannie Jeffries.
Jeannie Jeffries and Denise Kiss and John Kiss, they're not even invited this year, but they're still fucking coming. They're still coming because they want to be a part of it. They are a part of it.
I do want to make a declaration about that. Is George did want the control for the film, but he was also incredibly generous to include everybody else with him. He was like the president that didn't have all the answers. He was like, well, I want to make the final say, but I want to hear from everybody.
He was a president, not a dictator.
He's democratic,
yeah. And I think also from what you said about, I mean, that's one of the reasons why he had so much trouble with Vanilla was he did not want to be sort of pigeonholed. He wanted to sort of be taken a little bit more seriously as an artist and a director. But where was I going with this? God damn it! This one isn't happening.
It's a big open-ended question that Matt asked there. I rambled on about it too for a while. What about you?
It took me 41 years to really think about it. You know what I mean? Like, because I could never put my finger on it.
I still think about it now. I'm like, dude, you spend so much time. Like every episode, like you do a YouTube channel that's around Romero. Like every stream, everything you talk about is about Romero, but you never get tired of talking about Romero. Are you mentally are you unwell? Like, should I check myself into a thing? I'm just like, no, it's just kind of like,
and it may be hard to articulate, but it's there. You know what I mean? There's a reason why you do this, and there's a reason why we continue to show up, and it's beautiful, whatever it is.
Now I remember what I was going to say, because you brought up a point about making films, and it's like, well, that's what with Vanilla. Like George had said, I can get a film financed easily, but it's not the film that I want to make. And I think that speaks a lot to his ability as an artist, because he was a great actual artist. Like the art will just find. That's why I think if he played an instrument, he would have been great. But he did things on his terms, and there's really something to be respected about that. Like the guitar player that I met Jim through, Alan Holdsworth. I talked to Christine about this because he was a guy who played really unusual music, but he had an incredibly loyal, diehard fan base and was completely independent. People were like, Eddie Van Halen was a huge fan of his and would like wish he got the spotlight, but Alan always wanted to do things on his term, even if it meant not really making that much money. And it's a shame sometimes on the business aspect, because you feel like this guy did so much, he deserves so much more. But there's also something to be said about the man's artistic integrity. He made the films he wanted to make, and I think that shines through. He's not phony. He's not phoning it in, even if it's not the movie that he wanted it to be, or not the film that the audience wanted to see. He did the things his way, and there's something really to be respected about. And I think we also can pick up of George as being the friendly genius artist. And that's kind of what Alan was. Alan Holdsworth was a guy, he'd go up on stage, he'd play amazing, and then he'd go sit by the bar and have a drink with everybody. He was like your friend that was incredible at what he did. He wasn't like,
you're amazingly talented friend. Yeah,
it wasn't like, that's the guy over there, he does his thing and you can't see him anymore.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? He was like,
now he's going to his dressing room, don't bother him. It was more because that's how George was when I met him in 2008. Like Texas Frightmare Weekend is like, of course, going there. Like I remember specifically, and I don't know if my dad's watching this. He's been watching my streams lately, but I remember this specifically, like going and my dad telling me, he was like, "Are you sure you want to meet him?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to meet him." And he was like, "What if he's just this old grouchy asshole?" And I never thought of it, but I was like, yeah, what if he is? So I was kind of worried to meet him like in person for the first time. And then you meet him and it's just like I'm nervous as shit, but he's so like disengaging. It's just like, oh, hey, it's just as nice as you could possibly hope for. And it's like, oh, okay, well that's kind of, and it's like the whole term, don't meet your heroes type of thing. And, but it's like that you couldn't ask for anything better than meeting George and just the way that he was. He kind of matched what you were hoping for, I guess. I don't know what the fuck I was starting off on that, but
it's funny because it was like he was very friendly to everybody else, but very dismissive of his own work. And I feel that people that are geniuses, John Lennon, oh, it's a piece of crap I just wrote in 2 seconds. It's like, no, people love this thing. Alan Holdsworth, I played awful today. No, you played this amazing thing. A lot of these people are like almost too humble. And I think like that's almost like a sign of like a real sort of genius or intelligence, because you're just, whatever, I just threw it together. It's like, no, you did this amazing piece of work. And I'm glad
That was like the heartbreaking thing. I remember hearing Suze say, like Suzanne, and I think it was an interview that she did on the Garf or something like that, where she said that, like, right at the end when he was starting to get really ill, like she asked him, like, what do you make of like your legacy and stuff? And George was just like, nobody cares. And it was like,
It's so crazy.
so many people care, but he just never. It just never dawned. It was just. I don't know if he was just wanting the mainstream accolades. He wanted to be as recognized as Spielberg or something, but it was just like he didn't quite understand his impact, or he was so, I guess, humble to the point where he didn't know how to accept it, to just be like, oh yeah, I did some pretty cool stuff and I influenced so much.
Have you? I'm sure you've heard the interview that he did with Guillermo del Toro, where he's just like showering him with praises the whole time, and George is like, "Shut the fuck up, please, please stop."
Yeah. The whole
It's so
time
funny to
Guillermo
watch.
would be going into like this deep, thought out, like, oh, this is what this meant, and George is just like, I don't know,
Yeah, whatever.
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing,
I'm glad he did that because it was someone that was on George's level to let him know how good he actually was. It wasn't like, it'd be nice if it's a fan that does it, but now it's a fellow colleague that's like, no, you are important. And what you said is exactly what I was going to say about Susan, about the, no legacy. And she's like, oh yeah. And she shoved it up his butt with like the library. And it's true. It's like, we're all here to prove him wrong. Obviously that people do care. So I'm glad that he said was that dismissive, because that's what sort of set the domino effect of like, okay, well, we'll show you that people actually do care. And they do. But I think that's that humbleness where it's the genius, where it's just like, it's so easy for them. If they didn't put any work into it, it can't be that good, as compared to some of those other. And I think that might have been how he felt, because it seems to be artists, and I see this a lot for music stuff, are the worst critics for their own work, where they don't understand how good or how impactful their material is. Like my own band's songs, I don't remember them. I was like, what's the name of that song? Not that we're that important, but I care sometimes so little. Like, what's the name of that? How does that thing go? But I know every note of Alan Holdsworth's like music. You know what I mean? So I think
you
I
get
don't
your
really
own
write.
shit. Yeah, you're just like, that's just a bullshit. But
and I think it's for him, it came so easy, and he didn't see it as that much of a challenge. Like, oh, you're just a brilliant. Well, I'm just taking as many shots and throwing them together in this. And even in that commentary for Martin, it was John Amplis or someone that was like, maybe it was Richard Rubinstein, which was interesting because that commentary was in the mid 2000s, and I thought it was weird that they were talking. But Richard was like, no, you like took all these shots together, and he's like, well, that's just a whatever. He's like, no, you're a genius for doing this kind of stuff, and let me tell you why, and because it must have just so easy to him that he wouldn't have to think about it, whereas other people were like, no,
George never understood his own success. I think George was just kind of like, what am I? I didn't do anything. Like, I've done nothing great. I'm just why? Well, you like this movie? Why? Like, why do you like this movie? He never seemed to understand his own success, which was always kind of one of those things that kind of drew me to him too. Was just always kind of stay humble. It's like, oh, I don't understand like why you like this, but it's.
Well, you see it.
I don't know, but that's kind of what made him great. It's just kind of like, I don't know.
When they do the screenings for a night, he's like, all this talk about this movie. It's like, yes, George, this actually movie is really important because maybe you didn't see Dwayne as black, everyone else did, and they could at least understand, even if it wasn't written in the script, the implications that this film had. Because I think George's problem is he likes to see the film as like, well, this movie isn't good because I didn't have the people with their looking at their eye line and all this kind of stuff. Knight Riders is a better made film. It's like, well, it's got a good story, but like, there's more to being a director than just like those little mistakes. And I think for George, his opinion of the film is about how good of a job he did directing it, like compared to like a Spielberg. And it's like, that's not important, because if it was, Knight wouldn't have done nearly as well as it did. People would have looked at it and said, yeah, you could see their eyes don't, why am I watching this thing? The story and the mood that the film set was so much more important than the stuff that makes you like a real director. Obviously, it doesn't matter. The story and what you're doing shines through. And I think George couldn't see that. Oh, we didn't even know what Foley was until Knight Riders. What difference does it make? The film itself, the end result is more important than knowing those little details.
Yeah. Seth, what draws you to Romero?
Well, a lot of it was already said, but I got to say, not just because he's from, Pittsburgh, steel town, working class kind of environment and stuff like that, but he really was a man of the people in his presentation, in his characterizations. But he was certainly not one dimensional like a lot of people are. Like we were talking about Resident Evil, and look who ended up making Resident Evil. Paul W.S. Anderson is one notch above Uwe Boll, right? So it was just garbage, right? I hate those movies. But so George would have done a good job with that. But you look at his stuff, he's done different genres. He's had multiple layers of stuff. It's like he's a little bit of comedy in his movies, a little bit of action, maybe a lot of action, some horror, not all horror, even though he's billed as a horror director. Social commentary, incredible tactician when it comes to like the script and the editing, as we talked about with even editing library music with Goblin and stuff in Dawn of the Dead to make a custom track for the Stinger, which is fucking crazy. No one did shit like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even John Carpenter, all the credit he gets for music, he's kind of nothing without Alan Howarth. He's not a one-man show. But in a lot of ways, George, he had a huge crew and a family environment and stuff like that, but he kind of was a one-man show for a lot of it. He could take a lot of the credit, I think, for his work. Although he did create this amazing atmosphere. And it's funny because you get these vibes from his movies, even though something like Day has all this darkness in it because it's depicting a horrible time period and a horrible outlook for humanity, what's left of it. And yet it's still humor in there. And there's still, quirky bits and other kinds of stuff that's George, right? That's George's little thing of never completely like making it, like, it's not so heavy, come out so depressed, right?
Yeah.
Or it's not so silly that you're like, oh, that was too silly. He shouldn't have done that. But and I like the fact his smaller movies I always thought were his best movies. When he started going a little more studio, I think those are his weaker movies. It was better when he had the more family environment, typical crew. And when you listen to the commentaries and you look at the behind the scenes, the family environment totally makes sense because he's already got that vibe in the movies. It's part of the DNA of the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does not like, oh, I didn't know he had an environment like that. It just made sense. You didn't have to think about why is this so family environment on the set? It's there. You just kind of, it's the gestalt. You just kind of, you don't think about it, but it's in there. You just feel it.
Yeah.
And so he just creates this amazing vibe. And yeah, not all of his movies are amazing, of course. Everyone's got, good and bad movies. But when you're seeing a George Romero movie, how you feel, how it looks. There's a lot of precision in there. There's a lot of artistic integrity in there. Generally has really good acting, good writing. And so I would so much more recommend a lot of his movies to people as general watching people, whatever, than so many other directors, even though I revere a lot of directors and stuff. It's just his movies are more down to earth in a lot of ways, more approachable, but still have these like heady, like commentary, social commentary, and smart stuff. He was a smart dude for sure.
Yeah.
So
I love it. You mentioned his editing too. I mean, that was kind of a big thing that attracted me and really what made me want to be kind of an editor. That's kind of my favorite aspect of George's career was his editing.
And he learned to overshoot, which is smart because you never know. It's not fix it in the mix, but it's like, hey, I might have a different idea later that works better. So let's overshoot the shit out of stuff. And now we have options. We're not like, oh, now we really have to fix it. We forgot this angle. And we have to do some weird reuse of shots. Sometimes you see that in movies, they actually reuse a lot of shots. I'm like, oh, don't do that. So,
yeah.
Well, they had to at night, but that wasn't his.
Yeah,
his,
sure.
Yeah. What about you, Brandon? As somebody who has put the work and the time in to become a filmmaker yourself, and obviously revere George enough to make him the subject of one of your films. What is it about George that attracted you to his films and just his legacy in general, I guess?
Well, it's someone that's learning to be a good film director. That's going to be a lifelong goal of mine. Just keep learning. But George was the first director that I would listen to interviews, read interviews in magazines, and just get bits and pieces. He was the first film director that I looked at, and because of him, I said, I could do this too. Because everyone else, they're making, I mean, at the time in the 90s, 20 million, 30 million, $50 million movies, maybe more. And George was always the like here's the little cheap way that we did this shot, and we do this effect, and that was more impressionable on me, because it really did make me go, I could get other people around me that want to make movies, and we could go off and make a movie. Like it's actually
it's like
possible.
Let's put on a show thing. Hey, let's put on a show.
Yeah.
Let's do something fun.
Yeah, like and then over the years, like you could just see people that worked with him, how much they revered him for the fact that they truly felt valued. It wasn't just, hey, we're going to go make this movie and you're going to be treated like dog shit and here's your cold cut. Everyone that worked with him walked away feeling like they contributed something of value, and it wasn't just getting churned up and grinded by the industry. And you see that now, because look at how many people that come to Living Dead weekend as guests, and they just gush about George Romero. Yeah. Like just it's wonderful to hear those stories, because it reinforces, like, for me, like the kind of director that I want to be. That is the standard. And I love the fact that George was fiercely independent. One of the quotes that was used in the documentary, which he was talking about with why he got fired from Resident Evil, he said, I always fought. He said, I was never in a position where I'd just say, okay, let's go shoot this piece of shit. He's like, I always, and that really spoke to me, is like, okay, every film that he did, he was passionate about.
Integrity. Yeah.
There was integrity. And I love John Carpenter, but there are some films of his that, like Village of the Damned. Village of the Damned is a studio requirement. He was under contract. They said, hey, we'll let you make this movie, but you got to direct Village of the Damned. And he was like, okay. It just, and it's a film that feels to me very weak. It's like, and Carpenter himself is like very dismissive of a lot of the stuff. Like,
he had several in a row that were just terrible, actually. So
yeah, So, and to this day, I still feel like Carpenter did Escape from LA is just a slap in the face to the industry, because it feels like it's making fun of sequels.
It is,
But with George's films, like you can find stuff to love about them. And the only other thing that I would say, which is to caution a lot of people about, because I have heard it, and I'm usually the one out there coming out of the gate hooking and jabbing about it, but you look at how many of George's fans revere Night, revere Dawn, revere Day. When it comes to Land, it's like, And then you get the Diary and Survival, and they're like, oh, that's a piece of shit. And
well, start asking some of them about Vanilla and Jack's Wife. Half, I don't want to say half of Romero fans don't even know what those films are, but it's a huge majority that just gravitate towards the zombie stuff.
I love everything that George did, because I find something to love. And there was a while where I actually had a little meme going that I made, which was the soldier from the movie Civil War, and it was like, oh, you're a Romero fan. It's like, what kind of Romero fan?
Well, that's what I said. Most people think of him as a horror director, and he wasn't just horror, but that's how most of his fans.
But I brought up the point before that it's like, yeah, it's well and good to have your favorite Romero film that's now 30, 40, 50 years old. But what are you going to do in 10 years? Are you just gonna stop being a Romero fan because everyone that worked on these films is gone? Like, you better start loving something about Diary and Survival. If you love Living Dead Weekend, if you love, the Living Dead Museum, if you love all of these events that do things for George, you might want to start loving his later works, because
those are becoming the classics now.
Right.
20 years of Land of the Dead. I just watched it again the other night. I'm just like, 20 years. Like, I remember seeing it in the theater, but.
And I will say this. I do love Survival. There's some troubling parts of it, but overall I love it. And the reason why I love it is because George had the opportunity to make a sequel to Land. Universal was happy. That came straight from Peter Grunwald, his producer partner. They were ready. Like, yeah, it did well for us. And George hated working on Land of the Dead so much because of the studio system. He was like, nah, I'm good. And he went off and made Diary. He was like, nope, I'm going to go make Diary. Less problems. And when it came to Survival, he finally got to make his Western, and he got to go out the same way he came in, being independent. And again, as someone who's going to be spending the rest of his life learning to be a good director, that leaves more an impression on me than if God, could you imagine Romero being under contract and it's like, okay, for your third film, since we gave you Land of the Dead 2, you're going to have to direct Captain America Civil War. And like, he's just sitting there and he's like, I don't even get to direct half the fucking movie because it's all CG. Like, you can imagine just like how disappointed he would be that he's like not even making half the movie.
Well, that's like Ready Player One, where it's almost all CG, right?
Yeah. Like I just can't imagine that happening. So I'm like really happy that he got to go out the way that he wanted, being independent.
Yeah.
He never got to the point where, again, he's just going through the motions for a paycheck. He had that integrity through his entire fucking career. And what's not to love about that kind of legacy? And you look at him now. It's a shame he didn't get to see it, but he has a university that has an archive of all his work. And I'm sorry, but you don't see Tobe Hooper.
No, you don't.
You don't. Wes Craven. You don't see an archive of his work. And think about all the other directors there are. Like, George Romero was that revered, that important to cinema.
Also helps he was a local boy too. It's a whole thing, right? It's the Pittsburgh scene, the university.
It's Pittsburgh, It's like it's so funny. The first time I had visited Pittsburgh and gone to a Living Dead weekend was 2021. Family vacation. It's like COVID's coming to an end. We can travel, we can do things again. The Living Dead weekend's coming back. We're going. Pack up the baby. Let's go. We're going to Pittsburgh. So our first family vacation was Pittsburgh, and the first thing we do, we check into our hotel. They say, "Oh, the original Primanti Brothers is right down the road." So okay, so we walk down the road, go to the Primanti Brothers. The first thing I see on their wall is the painting of George Romero. And I looked at my fiance. I was like, I'm home. I'm in the right place.
Right.
Like where you can walk into a restaurant and the first thing you see is a painting of George Romero. I'm like, this is everything I hoped it would be.
Even that medical show, The Pit, had a corpse cameo from an actual zombie from a previous Romero movie. So
that's cool.
She's dead in a wheelchair, right?
He's just it's just part of the city. I don't know. It's just
he's
the
part
vibe
of the DNA
that you're there.
now. Yeah, he's just part of the Pittsburgh DNA. His legacy is going to last forever. It's incredible.
When was you guys' first time to trip to Pittsburgh? I think Matt, yours was the same year mine was. I think 2021. Because you were the first person. Yeah, you were the first person to ever talk to me. We were just walking through the mall, and you were like, "Hey, you're Mike Lancaster, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, man?" And so that was the same year. What about John? I think yours was a couple years after that, I believe.
Yeah, to 2022, because like I said, I went to Monroeville in 2006. I drove by myself to the Monroeville Mall. I went there. I had the Chinese food, which was horrible. But I went into the Pennies. I saw the elevator. I walked over the bridge. I did all that stuff. And this was at the time where the mall was very tight with the security, and also camera phones weren't that great. I parked. I remember I was going to the biker entrance. The spot opened up right under the 30, and I went, it's a sign. Although that's not where it was in the film. I think they moved the 30 in 78.
Numbers have moved, yeah.
Yeah. But I did that whole thing, and like I said, once I saw the night 4K in theaters, and it didn't dawn on me that I could buy it on Blu-ray. Well, the 4K wasn't out. The 4K it was the Blu-ray. So I bought that, and I said, "Oh, that's when I'll start watching it." And that's where it's how I got involved with all this stuff, because I noticed the farmhouse had 2 staircases, and I never noticed it before. So I was like, I should join the Facebook group and mention this, and that's where I was like,
found something new. It's funny how exciting it is when you find something new. If something you've seen 100 times, and all of a sudden it's like, how did I miss this? Like this one little thing. Like happens with me with Dawn of the Dead all the time. Like every time I see Dawn of the Dead, it's like there'll be something different that I've never noticed before.
Larry and I go back and forth. I'll find a photo, like there's a split second, like a frame where you see Gornick holding the camera when the bikers arrive. Like, oh, you see this? But I joined the Facebook group, and that's where Jim said that he was a fan of some of the Alan Holdsworth videos that I did. I'm like, oh, okay, and I didn't realize that his name was on the stuff that I was just watching. Oh my God! Blah, blah, blah. So I would already got a ticket. He said, "Are you going to go to the Living Dead weekend?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'm going to be there." Okay, I'll meet you there. Okay, but that was the June of 2022, and I went on a Friday night. I got there because I didn't know what to expect. So I said, "Oh well, they're going to do this convention. I'm not big for autographs, so I'll get there Friday night." And I was there. This was when they had the Night 90 people in, and I sat down. Whatever, and they had the cast come in, and they talked about it, and they all left except for McKee Anderson. She sat down right next to me. Who's one of also Jim's people, and we watched the movie. And I wasn't expecting to sit next to this is my first experience there. And after the movie's over, I turned over and said, "You've got horrible taste in men." And we just joked because it's Tom Towles and all this, but. And then I went and I figured out what Jim did, and we went to the cemetery and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, this is great. And then he said, hey, do you want to come back in October and help me out and this and that? And I went, yeah, I'm in. And then that was it. I was pretty much.
You were hooked after that.
Yeah, I was pretty much hooked. And that's why Brandon said, oh, I'm a newbie. I've been only doing this for 6 years. I told this to Chris, and I met Jim Rogal for the first time because I met Lori for the first time a month ago, and that was the first time Jim was there. And I talked to him. I said, "Oh, I know that your father did some investments and stuff for Dawn." He was like, "How did you know that?" And I was like, "If I'm privileged enough to be behind this table, I have to really know my stuff because I don't want to feel I have the new kid on the block that who's this kid all of a sudden that's sitting with all these people. I have to earn it, So let me do my research and all that stuff and."
That's always how I kind of felt if I bumped into Matt or Eric Ken or somebody like that, it's like, oh man, I better know my shit if I want to talk to these guys type of thing. But Synth, I know you were last year. Last year was your first year. What took you so long, man?
If I hadn't discovered your show the beginning of last year, I would have missed last year because I grew up with Fangoria magazine. From episode 1 all the way through to the recent run, and I knew about Fangoria Weekend of Horrors. Never went to it. Never even went to a Star Trek convention till I don't know, high school or something like that. And then didn't even know about Living Dead Weekend. It was going for 10 goddamn years. I missed it. So thanks to you, I not only found out about it, went to it, and I get to go this one more time, and hopefully it's a really good one because it might be the last one there. So, yeah.
Sadly. What about you, Brandon? What was your first Living Dead weekend? What was your first time going to Pittsburgh?
Okay. I'll do 3 things, but I'm gonna try and speed through them. The first time I ever went to Pittsburgh, first time I ever went to the mall. I got married in 2008. Really small ceremony because I was getting deployed. So I went on deployment, went overseas, came back. wife and I decided to have a much bigger wedding because it was really just kind of like a, hey, our parents are there, that kind of thing. So we had a really big wedding, and we decided for that wedding we would do a honeymoon in Pittsburgh. Real local, but we can get away. We go. We actually stay at Spring Hill Suites in Monroeville. So while we're there, we get checked in, and then Zombieland had come out. So we went and saw Zombieland. And then while we were in the area, I was like, I think Dawn of the Dead was filmed in this area. Monroeville. That sounds familiar. So I search it up in like early like Google Maps or whatever. And it was like
MapQuest.
It was like 2. I remember just saying like 2 miles away, and I was like, I need to do something. She's like, what? I was like, I have to go to this place. So we drove over to the mall, and I got to walk through it. And I had heard even back then, like they didn't like you taking photos, and I'm like, I bet I would look like a weirdo anyhow, just walking around like.
Hey, look, it's Claire's.
So I'd be there with like my crappy phone, like, So, but that was it, and I really did. Even then, I had this like weird, surreal, like dreamlike state of walking through halls, and but then that was it. Never went back until the pandemic. Everything was shut down, and then that's when I heard about Living Dead Weekend. And it was like, I think I heard about it right when it was canceled. I was like, oh, that would have been really cool to go to, but it doesn't exist. And then I was seeing so I was joining the groups. There was nothing to do. So this is the first time I'm even realizing there's conventions near me. I know of like San Diego Comic-Con, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, there's like stuff going on all around me, and I never knew it. So I joined the groups, hanging out, getting to know people. That's where I was meeting like Daniel Lowry and Matt Blasi, Eric Kent, Paul Farver, and Larry, all those people. And I decided to actually go to, I did go to Evans City for the last weekend of the Living Dead Museum in Evans City. I watched Night of Living Dead in the community park there, saw the cemetery. I did all that stuff. And that was like the first good taste of being part of something. And then I went to the zombie marketplace, and I finally got, I still remember Daniel Lowry having like his whole like table booth with all the artwork that he did. And I was like walking up to him, and he just goes, Brandon Salisbury. And I like,
that's what he does.
Good. Yeah. I was like, holy shit. I was like, that's pretty wild. But
that's what he did to me. So he said, Mr. Landrum. And I was like, holy shit. Like, that's just, I don't know, it's crazy.
Yeah. He's like very good faces to name.
Yeah.
So I got to, that's when I finally, first time got to meet John Russo, and got to meet Eric Kent. And I won't dime the person out for reasons, but I got to have a tour of the mall, like privately, of just like, here's this hallway, here's where this is at. Here, let me show you the basement, that we're going through. Like, I was like, oh man, it feels like this almost feels like back in the day when you're a kid and you're just like running around like an abandoned building or something, because like no one's around. I'm just like running around like, should we even be here? He's like, oh, it's okay. So, but that was fun. So it was a very intimate, like looking at the mall and stuff and seeing the places. So that left a huge experience for me. And then I'm like, oh, November, I can't wait to come back in. I think it was July was the next one, because that was the Day of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead reunion.
Yeah, 2021.
But I always feel bad because Paul Farver and I always run into each other like late. Like it's always like I'm going, he's coming, and I remember that in the zombie marketplace, like he shows up, we hung out for like 30 minutes, and I was like, I got to drive back because I got like a 3.5 hour ride, and But like me and him, like we've been pretty good friends over the years. I still remember, I wanted to say about this earlier, just a really quick story that just shows you the kind of like camaraderie and like that feeling of being family. One of the years, Paul couldn't make it, and he wanted me to get something from, I think it was J.C. Penney's. So he was like, just buy me a shirt, whatever. I just want the receipt. So that's what I did. I was like, what size are you? What colors do you like? And I ended up shipping it over to him with the receipt and everything. And I think he wore the shirt the next year. He's like, not only do I have this receipt, but I got a nice shirt out of it too. And
sounds then, like Paul.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, he ends up gifting me with this, like a recreation of George's scarf. And anyone that's ever talked to him, that's seen his scarf, he went through so much material, just randomly ordering the stuff and doing research, trying to get as close as what he could to George's actual like scarf material. Like that was like insane, knowing like the amount of dedication that he put in just trying to find it. And he ended up giving me one as a gift. So like I wear it all the time. And I'm always telling people like, I got this as a gift. Like last year, like Savini was walking by and he's just like, he like stops and just starts, finger fucking my scarf. He's like, where did you get this? I think at first, like he thought it was George's actual scarf. I was like, oh no, Paul Farver made it for me. But no, I cherish this thing like crazy. I'm always wearing it. I love it.
So what you're saying is that if anybody wants to approach Tom Savini and get something out of him besides, being cold, instead, you can either bring a pretty lady or you can bring one of Paul Farver's scarves. That's what you're saying.
That's the secret.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, Paul's a great guy.
He is.
It's funny. The first time I ever met Paul was at a Living Dead weekend, but it was like a couple of weeks before that, in I guess it was a Living Dead weekend Facebook page. He had posted a video of him playing drums to one of the tracks from, Zombie Dawn, that one of the Goblin tracks. And I didn't really know Paul at the time, so I clicked on it. I was like, oh, that'd be interesting. And I looked, and he had the scarf, and he had the whole thing. He looked just like George. And for a split second, I was watching that video on my phone. I was outside. It was kind of a glare, but I was watching. I was like, holy shit, is that George playing the drums? Like, I really thought that was George Romero playing the drums for a second. So I ran into him outside of the Doubletree when I was at Living Dead Weekend. And I was like, hey, you're Paul, right? And he's like, hey, yeah, what's up, man? I'm like, dude, you're the one I literally thought that was George Romero playing the drums. And he was like, no, it was just me. It's just me. And we just started talking. That's how I met Paul, was that he had the scarf. Like I saw the scarf and he was playing fucking drums,
I think he actually said, because, people come in and they cosplay. You always have like the different cosplay zombies. And I know there's someone like every year that walks around dressed like older George with the Goliath glasses and the vest.
Yeah.
But I think there was someone that like confused Paul because, he's a tall guy, very broad. He wears a scarf. He has like the hair a certain way, and he looks like Dawn of the Dead era George Romero. And I think someone actually thought like he was cosplaying as like George from the 70s. And it's like, no, that's literally just Paul.
That's just how he looks. Yeah.
Like
it's just the scarf throws you off. He puts that scarf on.
And the
it's like,
flannel shirt.
Cosplay.
Yeah, the flannel shirt on too. It sells it.
We talked about this year's Living Dead weekend possibly being the last, with everything that's going on with the mall and Walmart, and from everything that I've heard, that there's no leases being extended past this year, so it's all kind of up in the air of what's going to happen with the mall going forward. But with that news, it does seem like this is going to be probably the biggest crowd for a Living Dead weekend that we've seen since 2021, after everything started opening back up after COVID. You know, a lot of the tours I think are pretty much mostly sold out. The VIP is sold out. I think I think the Night of the Living Dead screening is about sold out. So I mean, I've seen a lot of people in different groups, different, not just Romero stuff, but just like I've seen a lot of chatter in just, you know, horror YouTube channels, horror groups. I'm in all kinds of different stuff talking about this event. Do you think, I don't know, what are you guys' thoughts about that? Do you think that that's going to, I don't know, give some bit of goodwill towards possibly something happening in the future? Another, because I was asked this earlier by CK from the Dead Pit. Do you think there'll be another event, another Living Dead weekend event? And I said I really don't know. I don't think there's anything planned right now, but I don't think so. But what do you guys think? Do you think there's something possibly in the future before it all kind of is what it is, or is it going to move to a different location? I'm just curious what you guys' thoughts on that.
Well, they had it in Evans City before, right? So they could move it there if they had to.
Right. That's what I was thinking, that either move it back to Evans City or move it somewhere in Pittsburgh. You know, we've talked about it before. Even if the mall's not there, I still think we would gather somehow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think Kevin would let it go.
Yeah.
So I don't know anybody personally with any kind of inside information or anything, but I would assume
just hold it in Braddock. It's got to be cheap to hold it in Braddock. Right?
Yeah.
Get Tony Booba to hook us up with some good. Yeah.
But you know, even if there's not like and this is just me talking, but even if there's not like an official event, I wouldn't be opposed to just fucking meeting up with everybody. You know, just like, hey, once a year, let's just plan on meeting somewhere. Let's hit some filming locations. Let's eat some Permane Brothers. Let's do the thing. Even if there's not like an actual official event or official meeting place or something like that. That's how much I care about it. And care about my friends is I feel like, you know, even if there's nothing official, that we should still somehow, some way get together, whether it be annually or biannually. I just, you know, I don't see it dying, at least not for a while.
I'm pretty sure that they'll probably have another one, and I don't think, like you said, Kevin will give this up. The one upsetting thing about if Living Dead sort of goes away is, you know, the Chiller Expos and your Days of the Dead conventions and stuff. They'll still have the, you know, your Lauries and your Russes and whatever, but the people that I would be interested in are, you know, the underneath people, and they don't really you know, they're not going to be there at those conventions. Like two of the people that I found, I was surprised Jim had asked me to ask them if they wanted to appear, and we haven't released, you know, who they are yet. We will in like a few weeks. They
can't break some news.
No,
give us scoops. Come on.
They couldn't make it, but they seemed open to it. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, I would love to, you know, go and see them and talk to them and at least bring them to these things. But, you know, if they were to do another convention, they're not that popular enough to warrant, you know, a plane ride or whatever. So a lot of the more interesting background people that I would like to meet are not going to have that opportunity to do these kind of things. And a lot of them are low. I mean, those people, they live in West Virginia, so they're not that far away. But, you know, a lot of them.
You make a good point, though. Like, Living Dead Weekend is kind of like one of my favorite people that I've met at one of these conventions is Trudy Gray from Dawn of the Dead. Trudy is so sweet, so nice. Like, she signed something for me and I walked off, like, not even thinking, like, oh, I gotta pay her for this. Like, she was just so cool. And she didn't say anything. And I hit him. I was like, oh, I gotta go give her money for this. And I went back and she was like, I wasn't even gonna say anything. You know, it was just so nice to talk to you. But like people like that, like there's not really a place for those people at, you know, your Horror Hounds or your Days of the Dead or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing for me. And a lot of those Living Dead Weekend's the only place that you're really going to get. God, the story from last year, Rosemary Rixey, like, just, you're not going to get that story anywhere else. You know, like, me and Will had to drive Rosemary Rixey home from the VIP party. Like, shit like that.
That was a pretty crazy story, dude. That was pretty insane.
So that's like the big, you know, that's a big thing for me, is like all these the people that like if you're going out of your way to travel to a Living Dead weekend, these are the people you want to meet. Like these are people you want to hear from. You know, John Rice. Like last year, like if they could have just announced like, oh, Living Dead weekend, and the only guest we have here this weekend is John Rice. I'm there. Like I'm there. You know. So
the my I guess pie in the sky thing is I'm trying to think of expect the worst but hope for the best kind of thing, and my hope for the best is I don't think that the mall's gonna exist, but if they see how popular it is and how much it means to so many people, my like saving grace, what they maybe could do is like save the biker entrance area and make that like a little museum. Because maybe you don't need the whole mall, but at least you got one of the most identifiable parts of it. And Walmart was like, well, you don't need all this other space, but we'll at least have this, and you can put a little museum and a tribute. That's to me is like the best case scenario. What I would hope for, that they, if it's this popular, that they can recognize and say, okay, we'll see if we can give them something. And to me, that's the only thing to really give.
And it would make money, right? So
yeah.
I mean, I don't see there being an issue with the Living Dead weekend going back to Evans City. The one thing that I've actually been the most concerned about is the museum, because I'm like, holy hell, they just got that thing moved 5 years ago. Not even 5 years ago, four and a half, something like that. And now he's looking at possibly having to pack all that stuff up and get it transported somewhere else. And it's like, there's so much valuable stuff there. And then it's like, now it's bigger. I mean, he expanded everything, and now he has to try and find a new location for the museum.
Yeah. And I don't think that it would fit. I don't think it would fit in the old location where it was in Evans City. How big it is now?
Will
no
not.
Way.
No. Because I was impressed having saw it on its last weekend and then seeing it when it reopened, and it was like, holy shit, this is awesome. Like the amount of.
I'm sorry.
But no, like I went to the last Evans City event where they had it at the convention center, and it's small.
Was it just one room?
No. There's like the front hall. There's like another hall that they separated for the vendors, and then they had a stage area. So there's a little bit of like wiggle room in there. And the one nice thing is it's a convention area, so you're not also dealing with like shoppers that are like looking at you like, why the hell are you dressed as a zombie? And
zombie shopping.
All these people.
That's part of the fun,
though. So I could see that being the next step. We're just going back to Evans City. It's the birthplace of. I mean, you can basically look at Evans City as the birthplace of modern horror and the birthplace of the zombies. So why not go back there?
The problem with the Evans City locations, why they didn't do it again, is because not only the expense of the place, but it's also there's just no place for the hotels. Everyone's got to drive a considerable distance, and even when I was going there, I was taxiing people back and forth because we were 10 minutes away. So it's really the hotel situation, and because like Evans City's got a pop. Well, if we go from the crazies, it's 3,600 and I think 13. This is not a lot for any like hotel-y kind of areas. So that's the biggest like hill to. So if they were to have it again and they were going to use that, I can't imagine it being that big, purely for the space reasons and all the people that are going to be there. But I'm not sure. I don't know. It's like, well, it's that or nothing. So they might have, So
I will say that, say worst case scenario, mall gets completely leveled, nothing left. They build the world's largest Walmart there. Like I chuckle inside my head how much of revenge it would be. Not in any sort of like, hey, we're gonna go fuck this place up, but it would be rather hysterical if respectfully, like their opening day Walmart opens, and like the first people inside is like 300 people cosplaying as zombies.
Oh
like,
man,
just like
that'd be rad.
It's like Bub picking up milk and eggs.
Let's do it.
like just doing their shopping, just be like,
it's part of instinct. It was an important place in their mind. So.
Yeah, like welcome to Pittsburgh. This is what you wanted. This is what you're getting.
But they're not going to have the cosplay. That's the
Paul,
funny
check
thing.
your
They're not gonna
Facebook
have
in
the
a
cosplay.
second.
Yeah.
Paul, check your Facebook in a second. I'll send you the link, my man. Paul wants to join, so I'm gonna send him the link here in just a second.
Yeah, as soon as those doors open, there's going to be 300 zombies already. You know what I mean? They don't have the cosplay.
That's true too.
Is Paul going to be okay? Remember from last time, he was kind of.
Oh yeah.
Paul and I both shed tears on the end of Sunday. We always do.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's a big thing about this year too. It's like it's going to be really emotional. I think for a lot of people on that last day.
I'm a little concerned about Larry's tour. I think that's going to be tough. That last tour on Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm going to try really hard. It's going to be
last
tough,
time
though.
to see a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. If any of you guys cry, I'm going to catch it on video. So.
I mean, I said this before, it's a godsend that the mall was even open that long. I mean, it came out. The mall officially opened.
Late 60s, right?
7 months after Night debuted.
Yeah.
May 14th, 1969. That's crazy to think about that building existed for that long. So at least we got that much out of it, and especially with the past Living Dead weekends and all the tours, and there is a lot of documentation of it. It's not like the Night of the Living Dead farmhouse where, aside from one photo, it just exists in the film and that's it. There's like almost no proof that it ever existed. So it's at least nice that it's hung around this long. So it's a shame, but the things obviously, and it's funny to think about, like maybe the last location that is going to exist is the first shooting location for Night of the Living Dead. Mm-hmm. It's like comes full circle. The only one that's still around.
I mean,
first ever filmed.
Cemeteries
don't
really
trees,
disappear.
it looks the same. Yeah. So.
Cemeteries don't really change, or nothing really happens on that. So, yeah. It is true. Trying to send the link to join here to Paul. My computer's like freezing, so hang on a second. I don't know if this is even working, but
is it the same one that you sent us?
Yeah, same link.
Yeah, I can. You want me to copy and let me see if I can send it to him.
For some reason, it's really slow when I try to do anything on Facebook. So, yeah, if you could do that for me, Matt, that'd be greatly appreciated. Hang on, Paul. We're going to get you in here, my man. While we're doing that, I'll check on some of these comments here. Some of these I missed. Some questions. Stezio wanted to know, did anyone ever find out who at Walter Reed changed the title card and left off the copyright notice?
All right. Finally, something that I can talk about. Okay, we know who the person was that titled Night of the Living Dead. That'll be in the book. But it's not Walter Reed's fault. The problem is animators and latent image. The thing is, this is why I actually told Jim to put this in the book, and they said no, because they said there'd have to be so much to be written about it. But the bottom line is they just bungled it. I don't think George and Latent Image ever were in the habit of copywriting anything because they were always making commercials and they weren't copywriting them. So, they made the film. Bob Walcott did the logo. I think Russ did the credits at the end, but no one paid attention. But the bottom line is, and we talked about this before, but I guess I could put it out there again. The film was never titled as Night of the Flesh Eaters, like on the print. It was always Night of Anubis. That was lost in the June 72 flood from Hurricane Agnes that was missing for so long. And that's what they always said. We put the copyright on the original work print. And then when we went to go shop it to distributors in June, they got to Walter Reed and they said, we'll want the film, but change this, and we're changing the title. And it was Walter Reed that changed the title. It wasn't it wasn't John Russo's idea. But Leighton Image.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Russo says it was his.
It was not Continental's job to cut the film and change the title. That went to Knight and went to Leighton and the animators. And they always said, well, the original one was copywritten. Well, it was lost in a flood mysteriously. We could never find it because I believe they had said the Supreme Court said if you made this thing and you copyrighted it and then someone changed the title and you lost the copyright, show us the work print with the copyright originally on it and then we'll reinstate it. Well, obviously it was lost in the flood. We can't find it. WRS went out of business and said, hey, we've got all this stuff in the basement. Do you want it? To Russ, yeah, we'll take it. And for 10 years, the work print was sitting in his basement. Just with all it was there the whole time. No, it was lost in the flood. And then they finally found it. I think Jim, or maybe it was Jim through Ramona, forced, I can't remember, to look through or whatever. They found it. The first thing they did was, we got to go to the title and see Night of Anubis with no copyright on it. So I'm not sure why that they still stick to this story, because the original was never copywritten. The original Night of the Living Dead, logo, Night of Anubis, is no copyright on it. So the idea of that the Walter Reed changed it at the last minute, and then that they lost is false. The title was already set to be called Night of the Living Dead by late June of 1968. So they had June, July, August, September, October to look through this. And I don't know if it was, like I said, Bob Walcott drew the logo, but again, the copyright's supposed to be at the end, but Russ did the credits at the end. And I don't know who assumed what. I tried to talk to Russ. I talked to Rick Catazone about this. I think they're at the point, this is just me talking, that they're maybe just ashamed that they made such a silly mistake. But I'm thinking the copyright on the 4K is good. Everything else is copy. All the work that Jim did was great. Just own up to it and say, you know what, we were wrong. We messed
Is it
up.
true that 1970 they didn't require the copyright anymore? Is that true?
Say that again?
It was 1970, I think, was the time when they stopped requiring copyright on the titles, right?
Oh, I don't know. There
was a time period where you didn't need that anymore, so they missed it by a couple years.
Yeah,
I think it was later than that. I think it was
later?
77. I think is when that
That
whole
late?
rule changed.
Wow.
My bad, I was mute. It was 1978.
78.
I had to look into copyrights and legalities and other things. It was
that's pretty late.
I believe it was Supreme Court ruled on it 1978. You were no longer required to actually copyright certain things.
They're just automatically copyrighted. So.
For the most part, yeah. You
right.
still want to do it. But yeah, if you release something, if I were to make my own Night of the Living Dead, if that never existed, just for example, if Night of the Living Dead was made now, clearly, if you put it out in the public like that for distribution, people know who the owners are.
Yeah,
like Russ and all of them would not have the issues.
Well, I was thinking the copyright issue thing was solved later in the 70s, because that makes me think that maybe that Martin black and white 2.5 hour cut, that print, may be public domain, because that would have come out prior to that 78 change in the law. So that makes me think maybe Rubenstein really doesn't have a claim to that fucking thing. So
no, I'm gonna interject with that as well, because I was looking up a little Martin stuff. I got the thing. Tom Dubinsky told me this, and I found the I actually emailed him yesterday about this, because he told me that they made the film in '76 and they showed it at some place in New Jersey in 1976, and I found the the blurb where they were showing it. And I believe at that point, because when you see the trailers, because I only know this stuff because I literally just watched the movie twice yesterday, and all the special features. I watched all the commentary. The original, the trailer is copyrighted under Braddock Associates, and I found through the Garf website that the 3.5-hour cut was the one that they showed in New Jersey, the black and white one. And they did that in order to secure, I believe, some financing or something to find a distributor. There was some reason. I wanted Tom to tell me the thing. I'm pretty sure it was copywritten under Braddock Associates. But then after 76, there is no mention of the film being shown anywhere in 77. The next showing of it is 1978 on the West Coast, like in October of 78. And I think at that point, it's copywritten to the MKR group, the same one that's for Dawn. It's not under Laurel or anything, but it's like that, the MK whatever group. So I'm going to say that the original black and white cut is copywritten to Braddock Associates.
Okay.
So I mean, I'd love to see it. Actually, I have to tell you a crazy story that John Amplis told me that just made me go like with Rubenstein, but I'll leave that off.
I'd love to hear that. I would love to hear that. Robert says, I saw for the first time, There's Always Vanilla is better than I thought it was going to be. I love There's Always Vanilla. I think me and Matt are both very big Vanilla fans.
It's not a bad film. It's just directionless. It's like what everyone says. That's what I was trying to say before. Like George didn't want to be pigeonholed as a horror guy, but I wonder how things would have been different because Night came out. They got a RDIC grant for $100,000 in like March or February of 1969. They already had the Ray Lane short, and they're like, "Hey, we can do something with this." And they kind of forced something that shouldn't have been forced. And I think that was what the problem was. I wonder,
and that's what he said too, right? That it was he had to piece it together, and that's why he felt more like an editor than a director. Which I actually like the way that he edited that film. I thought he did a pretty good job.
Well, that's what he tried to save it, but
try to make sense out of it. Yeah.
More credit to his editing skills. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. They wanted to prove, we can do Night of the Living Dead in another genre, make some lighthearted thing. But the problem is that would have been okay if the film came out in 1969. And I'm pretty sure that they were told by distributors not to make the film. That people aren't going to want this, and they kind of did it anyway. And they filmed it in 69. It didn't premiere until March 1st, 72, which was quite a time afterwards. So
I know they got some shit too because of the abortion stuff, which it had been legal. It was illegal when they filmed the film, and by the time they came out, it was legal. So
I think the success of Night really doomed the company because George, like I said, wanted to be the president. He was the guy that said, "I want to do." And
I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah,
I'll be right back. Yeah, go ahead.
Night is George's film, and I think he wanted to carry that over into Vanilla. And the problem is, maybe Russ, John, Russo, wanted a little bit more because we all contributed and we all made this thing successful, and it was all pulling in different directions. And Rudy was like, "I don't have enough meat on the bone to do anything with this," but they got the grant from RDIC. They had to do something, so I think it was misguided. And I wonder if George changed his mind and decided to do another horror movie, if things would have been different. If it might have kept the group together, I don't know if it would have broken. But it's I think the success of that film helped break up Latent because they all, got bigger. We did all this kind of stuff or whatever. And Night, like I said, is mostly George's thing. And they started to have the separation of. That's why everyone left to make their own film company. And George and Vince and Gary for a little bit were the only ones that stayed. All the other guys that were bigger in there that contributed all made New American films in 1970. So I think that was part of the I wonder if it's the success, but also now that the movie's successful, they got all this money, they needed something to do. And that's why it was I don't think it's not terrible, but it's not the same narrative where George has something that he wants to say. They tried he tried his best to make something out of it, but they wanted to make a more lighthearted movie that you don't have to think about, and Chris has no story arc. He's sick of playing guitar and he goes and he's got this girl pregnant. He meets someone else and then he leaves her. And what was the point of the whole thing,
Yeah.
So.
I can see that. I still it tugged at my heartstrings. I don't know. I really appreciated it. I like Judy Ridley's performance in it. And I'm a big Ray Lane fan too. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I thought it was good. It's been called a romantic comedy, but I kind of look at it more as like a situational drama. I don't know, like the stuff with the balloons at the end. I don't know. I just thought it was beautiful. Like I can, the technical difficulties aside and how George felt about it aside, I appreciate it. I think it's a good film.
Yeah, I don't think it's like nearly as bad as they think it is.
Right.
But they're trying to force something that shouldn't have been forced. With that idea, because we have such success with this Ray Lane thing. Let's see if we can, do something with that. And Rudy's like, I don't have. This was just a thing that we tried to do. What is that? I don't think it's directed to say. Well, I mean, yeah, but it's still lighthearted in the fact that there's no real story arc to the character. What's Chris's story arc?
Well, let's be fair too. It doesn't help that she's very attractive, and that many bad movies have done very well with good-looking women in it. So,
yeah.
But the flaws of that film are nothing other than just the story part of it, and that's what Russ had said. Like Rudy was this great writer, but never really cared that much, or I forget exactly what he said, but he didn't seem to be that interested in it. And even for Knight, he wasn't that interested. Like, he thought that Knight was kind of beneath him, that they wanted to do something, bigger or something that wasn't as exploitative or something as maybe embarrassing. But for whatever reason, they were all kind of upset. I think even Russ said something that it took them a while just to get Rudy's money for Image 10. Like, he was just holding back on it. So
wasn't George's biggest gripe? It wasn't his script, right? So
yeah, Rudy Ritchie wrote it.
Yeah, and that's why he tried to make something out of it with what they were asking Rudy, you need to write something. He'd give a couple of pages here, a couple of pages here. I don't know what to do with this, so we need to film this narration. We'll do this. So George did his best to make it coherent, but I think in the long run, it was, like I said, just kind of directionless. And everyone, I mean, Robert might not think so, but if you talk to Rudy, Russ, Richard, Ritchie, they all basically said they're going to tell you the same thing.
I don't know. I've always been a fan of There's Always Vanilla, but I think it's just because I identify so much with that Ray Lane's character. I don't know. There's such. That was me in my 20s, and I've dated a lot of women like Judy who was like, get a job, it's time to take shit seriously. I'm pregnant. I never had to deal with that, but until later on. But, but yeah, I was kind of the same character as Ray Lane, or Ray Lane's character was in that.
But were you Ray Lane in Season of the Witch?
No, I can't think I've
ever... I will not listen to any of the Season of the Witch stuff. This is my gripe that I'm gonna hold.
Jack's wife. Call it Jack's wife.
It is Jack's wife.
I know, but that's how I rented it. That's the copy I have says Season of the Witch.
That's my issue. That's how I first watched it. I rented the VHS of Season of the Witch, so I've always just known it as Season of the Witch.
Exactly.
I also want to. I look
at them as two different separate films,
and the song by Donovan's in the title. So I mean, come on.
I want to interject. I actually am not entirely sure if that really long cut of Jack's wife actually ever existed. It might have been like the Dawn 3-hour cut where it was just interlock. Because I was looking through some of the talks that I had with Bob Ratowski, who worked for Leighton at the time, and he was like the production manager, and he's the one that actually cut Jack's wife from the longer version to the 89-minute version, because once Jack Harris he's like, I'll take it, but it's got to be under 90 minutes. But I'm like, well, where does this longer 104-minute come from? So I'm thinking that the 130 or whatever was probably what they originally had before they really did any trimming to it, and probably the 104 is the Jack's wife cut that they had, and then when they found a distributor, they had to edit it out. So I don't know if that ever 130-minute whatever version, because I'm watching them going, how much more could they possibly add? There's nothing left to really add to the film. There would have to be all this. That's a considerable amount. 25 minutes. There was things that were trimmed out. I mean, I had to do all this stuff for the research that I'm doing, but the stuff that they trimmed out was just stuff that just added a little bit to Jan White's story. but I can't imagine there being another 25 minutes of it. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to float that out there.
There's the man himself.
What's up, guys?
We were just talking about you, buddy.
We were. And you got the scarf on. Oh, shit. Did you bust out the jack?
I did,
Uh-oh.
yep.
Oh, no. Put it away.
So I'm more
Instant
than half in
replay.
the bag.
Yeah.
I'm with you, buddy. I got it. But I'm doing it for health reasons. I'm dealing with a little bit of a cold, so.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
It's Grandpa's
Hope it's
old
gone in
cough
2 weeks.
medicine, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad it hit now and not 2 weeks later down the road.
Exactly.
So I can kind of get it out of the way,
Stay hydrated.
So how you doing, man? Are you ready for? Are you ready? 2 weeks away, man. Are you?
Yeah.
You got everything? Are you set?
I was born ready. I can't fucking wait. This is like the biggest thing this year. I'm so fucking stoked for.
Oh, yeah.
In every conceivable way. I have a lot of money set aside for it. All the stuff I'm going to get signed. It's all ready to rock. I don't think there'll be any hiccups. So bring it on. Seriously.
Yes.
And it's going to hit me when I walk in the mall. Emotions will be high. So,
we were just talking about Sunday and how emotional Sunday is going to be. I'm a little concerned about the tour. How about you?
Yeah, I'm everything. Yeah, I mean the last big tour. Who knows of all time?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, the last day leaving is going to be kind of hard. Leaving is going to be kind of hard because you don't know if it's going to be. I mean, yes, it always is, but this year, knowing that it could be the last and could be the last time any of us see the damn mall, they move pretty quickly. They move, Walmart moves pretty quickly. Matt will tell you, they move pretty quickly, and when they're ready to
slice fast,
when they're ready to move on to something else, they're going to move on to something else. And like we were talking about earlier, it's like I totally understand why. I understand that. Malls aren't really the thing anymore, and it's not what it used to be, not quite what it meant to the town of Monroeville like it did back in the day. That was just kind of the hub, that was the thing in Monroeville. Now it's, I don't know, like, and it's just gonna be weird leaving on that Sunday thinking like,
if it was a less depressed area, they could have nice stores in there. Like there's a couple of malls by me are just crazy. They have all like the Gucci's and the Christian Louboutin and all that shit, So if they had more of those kind of upscale shops, they would do well. But that's not that kind of area. So
I don't think Monroeville has that kind of clientele.
No.
Yeah, sadly, I was thinking like when I first heard the news, I was hoping like maybe because remember the original people that were purchasing the mall and doing the the redesign or whatever. The idea was they do upscale malls or whatever, and I was like, oh, maybe they're going to do like they just upgrade it and maybe make it more of an upscale mall, make it the mall for Pittsburgh, because I mean we have a mall like that in Nashville, the Opry Mills Mall. It's like a little bit outside of Nashville, but that's pretty much the mall for Nashville. Whereas Nashville used to have 5-6 different malls. Now it has there's one main mall that everybody goes to. Well, 2, I guess. There's the Green Hills Mall, which is kind of the upscale mall like Synth was talking about. But Opry Mills is pretty much the mall that everybody goes to now. So that's what I was kind of hoping for.
They used to have 3 right next to each other, and only one survived in a small bit. But the rest became housing developments. So,
but so just thinking about that last day is going to be kind of shitty. But on a lighter note, you mentioned all the stuff you're going to get signed. I know Paul's usually pretty good at coming up with some pretty outside of the box things of getting signed. What are you guys bringing? Do you guys have anything that you guys are bringing to get signed specifically, or anything odd or?
Yeah, I've got this night poster. It's a copy of one of the originals. I guess it's red. I don't know. Have y'all ever seen that? It's like a red version of the night poster. There was a company. There was a company about 20 years ago called High Res Designs, and they did a bunch of reprints of Dawn, Night, and stuff like that. I snagged that. I snagged the Dawn poster that's got the gas mask with the white background, like the Japanese laser disc. I've got that full of autographs. But I don't have a whole lot on my night, so I'm pretty excited about meeting Kyra. I've never met Kyra. I've never met either Judy. So this is going to be a pretty big deal for me. I haven't been able to make any of the Evans City stuff. So most of the night people, I'm going to try to get everybody that I can on my night poster. My day poster is pretty much full. So I've got one of these, one of the newspapers that Larry sells.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've had it for a couple years, and Michael Tommaso was the first one to sign it when I went to Sanibel. Got Greg Nicotero, Tom Savini's on it. I'm thinking about kind of re-meeting all the day cast again and getting him to sign it. But it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and kind of what like what John's talked about too, is like, I don't know, like I've already met these people and I know that this is going to be the last year. Do I want to kind of do the same things that I've always done, or do I want to do new things? Right. So I'm kind of on the fence about that. I know for sure I want to get the night poster signed. I don't really have like a lot of quirky shit I could take with me. Paul's told me to take this molding from the airport. I've thought about it. I might, since the Michael Savini and Melissa Dunlap
they're both
are going to be there.
Yeah.
But the piece that I've got is actually from the door frame when Ken is clearing the airport next to the coffee maker. That's what that's from. So I would kind of feel weird if they signed that. I would rather Ken sign that than them. But I know who's got the frame that the kids bust out of. I'm not going to, like Brandon said, I'm not going to dime them out in front of everybody. But but yeah, I mean, I've got a couple things I could take with me. I'm not really looking forward to that as much as I am hanging out with people. And also,
when you said red poster, is that the one with the yellow lady screaming? Is that one?
No, it looks just like the regular theatrical.
Okay, because there's a version with the yellow lady screaming on. That's another.
No. But instead of green, it's red. It's just like an inverted. I don't know.
I've seen that before.
I see that one too. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'm more looking forward to I want to get this, some signatures on this, but I'm more looking forward to doing some different stuff with the family, like going to the Heinz History Center. Thursday we're going to the Hillman Library at the University of Pitt for the Romero archives.
Oh,
like I'm
awesome.
fucking so stoked about that. And I cannot wait to get my hands on, I can't remember how many different copies of the Dawn script I've got
like
been
3
set aside for. Yeah. I've got the original, I guess the prop for the original prop from the film for this is going to be there. I'm dying to get my paws on that fucking thing. So yeah, I've got something from There's Always Vanilla set aside, like a piece of the script from that. All kinds of stuff. I'm more looking forward to experiences this time than I am actually getting signatures and autographs. I've met a lot of those people already. I do want to spend more time with like John Amplis. I didn't really get an opportunity to hang out with him as much as I wanted to. The first time I met Lori Cardiel, I kind of froze up a little bit. I didn't freeze, but I didn't really talk as much as I wanted to. And, she fucking talked to me more than I talked to her. And, she was talking to my kid and talking to him about school and stuff. And I'm just like, she's one of the biggest heroes of my life. And it's like I didn't know what to say. And we were doing the photo op, and I remember she looked at me and she was like, "I like your shirt a lot." I was like, "Thanks." She goes, "I like your hair a lot." And I was like, "Thanks." And I kind of had a weird freak out fan moment. And I told my wife of it. I told my wife about it. She's like, "Oh, she's such a fucking masher. She's mashing on you." I was like, "No, she's not." It's
nice.
I was gonna say, bring up the masher. Bring up the masher.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
You bring up a good point. I just want to raise my hand up. Who else is going to the Heinz History Center this time?
I'm going. That's what I was gonna. I'm going to see the Mr. Rogers shit. Going to Heinz History. Yeah, absolutely.
I went
Andy
the
Warhol
first
Museum.
The first year
I
we
went
went
2
with
years
the
ago.
family. That's where we went.
No one else is going this
cool.
year.
I went 2 years ago.
I'm always attached to Jim's hip, so we get there, we got to do the stuff, and then we leave. I can't I feel like doing this or whatever. I really want to see the Wine of the Fawn production booklet. I'm curious to see if they were going there, like, hey, can you pull it out and like take a couple of photos and X, Y, and Z? Because there could be some other extraneous people to look for, because that's a very early latent project. Trying to look for names and stuff like that who could be involved.
Well, Are you talking about? Are you talking about the Heinz History Center, or are you talking about the Romero Archive?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the Romero Archives. Yeah,
Archive. Okay.
I'm going to that, but I think they're kind of funny about taking pictures of shit.
Yeah, I was gonna say because the Wine of the Fawn thing. I remember when I was there a couple of years back. I was reading the original Martin script, the original Dawn script, stuff like that. And there were two guys there next to me. I didn't really know who they were, but they were there, and they had the Wine of the Fawn, the original Wine of the Fawn screenplay. And they started taking pictures of like every page, and then Ben, who's kind of in charge of everything, just had to walk over and be like, "Hey, let's not do that."
But that's a script,
Well,
right?
it really depends on what your purposes are. Because I discussed at length. Obviously, I think I was the first person to look at the Resident Evil materials. I literally went like the second day that archive was open. I had discussed with him about like, hey, what's the policy on photography? And, he said like, we have to be careful about that. But I did talk about like intentions. Like I have a couple photographs, but, there's a trust there. Obviously you're a lot more well known than like some random guy that's just traveling out. So, if it's for research purposes and you explain to him exactly what you're trying to get, you can typically take a few photos.
I think that's the problem, is that it's the copyrighted, script material that someone could.
Exactly.
If it's the Wine of the Fawn investor booklet, there's nothing that there for that. But I forgot, because I got mixed up with the Heinz History Center, because they actually helped out tremendously with the police that I found, because they actually have in their archives a 1969 roster sheet of all the officers. So if I get a badge number, I can give them and that's how it started. I give them a badge number, and then they said, "Oh yeah, that's this person," and then I get more information. And so I said, "Oh, with all the stuff that you're helping me out with, I'm going to give you guys a credit, because like one of the guy that we're actually putting up tomorrow, I had them like jump through a bunch of hoops." So I was like, "Give me all of this information, and then I'll do the work." And they're doing it for free. So it was very kind of them to help. He was really, really hard, and they were very accommodating to me. So
are you, John? Are you going to the archives?
No, I've never went. I can never go, because I'm always with Jim. We ride in, and then I leaving with him. We take the same car.
Yeah, I got you. I know when I was talking back and forth with Ben, I think I had a certain time where I had to stop requesting stuff, because sometime earlier in May. So I don't think I'd be able to request that. I think like the window's closed for it, but I know they let you take notes and stuff, and that's what I plan on doing, was writing down everything that I can while I'm there, because I know you can't take a lot of pictures. So
there's no charge to go to the archive?
They actually give you a pad and a pencil.
Yeah,
like you can take as many notes as you want. Yeah.
Okay.
The archive's free, or do you have to pay to go?
No, it's free. Totally free.
You just gotta register.
Totally free.
The Hillman Library.
Yeah, just email Ben Rubin and at the archive, and let them know what you want to look at. You can see like through the archive. Let them know what you want to look at.
Like Matt said, this late in the game, you couldn't really request things now, right? So
well, no. I don't know if it's too late to actually like go in through the portal and apply to be able to go visit. But I know that because I put in for my visit like 6 fucking months ago or something. I was like, I'm booking and I cannot wait. But he told me that, I think early May was sort of the cutoff for requesting things. So I don't know. I don't know if somebody were to go in and try to make an appointment right now, if it'd be the same kind of time frame or window. I don't know.
And it's during the week, so it's like Monday through Friday, I think, is when it's available.
So everything's stored. There's not stuff on display. You just have to get something pulled out.
It's all in boxes, and he just goes back and pulls them out on a cart, and he rolls them out, and he's like, "All right, here it is. Have fun." And you literally will walk up, grab a box, bring it to your table, and you just start flipping through. I mean, it's insane how much stuff they have.
It's really
the
overwhelming.
crazy thing too is
it is.
Like I think I asked you. I can't remember who I asked. I was like, "Do they give you gloves?" And they're like, "No, they don't give you gloves." Like,
I asked them. I was like, "Should I be wearing gloves for this?" And they actually said, "No, it's actually better that you don't, because the natural oils on your finger are actually better for the materials than if you were." I don't know, but I asked him specifically. I was like, "Should I be wearing gloves for this?" Because I was like pulling out the original George's script for Dawn, and I'm like,
they should at least have you wash your hands if you got a Primanti Brothers sandwich on your hands. You know, touch a bunch of stuff.
I think that's okay.
So I don't want to
encouraged actually.
I don't want to raw dog this stuff with my hands and you know what I mean? Like, I'm afraid my hands are going to start sweating. I don't want to destroy this stuff. So
yeah,
I just remember going 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago to actually film there, and we got permission to do that, and that's where Ben Rubin's interview is for the documentary. But we had to lump all the gear up there to whatever floor that is, and I just remember being like a sweaty sack of shit. And we had to film the scripts and stuff, and it was like, oh, I am gonna forget that I'm sweating. I'm gonna lean over it and just destroy everything with sweat. Do not let me around this stuff.
You're gonna drip on everything.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's a little bit of me in those scripts.
Hell yeah.
And it's pretty cool because they have actual displays behind glass. Like when you walk up there, they have the Ella, the fake monkey from Monkey Shines. Yep. They have it on display. They got all kinds of stuff. It's pretty damn cool up there. And I only got to spend 4 hours in there, and it was just it flew by in no time, and I felt like I didn't get to see shit. I was just I was quickly just scanning through shit as quick as possible. I could spend days in there and just. You barely scratch the surface.
Yeah. And it's probably going to be even quicker for me because I'm going to have my kid with me because I had to register him and my wife too. Which my wife is a librarian. She's stoked about that more than anything about this trip.
Yeah.
But I know my kid. He's going to be bored as shit. So I don't know. Maybe 2 hours tops. So I'm going to be scribbling shit down as fast as I can.
Is there a time limit? So you only have X amount of time?
No.
Just when they close, I think.
It's just until they leave. Yeah. I did it. Mine was only 4 hours because it was the day after Living Dead weekend. That Monday morning was the only time I was going to be able to get in there. So I got there at 8 a.m. and I had to be out by 12 because I had to drive all the way back to Indiana, and that was an 8-hour drive. I was like, I got to get back because I got to go to work the next day. So I was like, I got to get out of here by noon. And still, it was just that whole drive home, it felt like the drive home was a 7.5, 8-hour drive, but it flew by because the whole time I'm just sitting there thinking about what I just saw, what I just read, trying to process, so that's what Dawn of the Dead was originally supposed to be like, and what would have happened then? And then before you know it, you're home and you're just sitting there thinking about it. So it's crazy. It's a crazy experience to be in there, I'll tell you.
That's cool. Yeah. Thank you, Suzanne, for shoving it up George's ass. People do care about him.
Yeah, really.
And that's the thing is, I'm glad that they care because I've heard other things where it's like, oh yeah, my uncle was in, Dawn of the Dead, and we took all photos, and then when he died, they just threw him out. It's like, guy, so I'm glad that at least all that stuff, if it was somebody else, would have all gone. They said, oh, who cares about this stuff? So
that's one thing you can say. That's one thing you can say about Suzanne is she, for whatever reason, felt like it was her mission to preserve George's legacy and, create the Garf and the archive and save all this stuff. And I'm not saying that Christine wouldn't have done something like that, but I think that Suzanne kind of had that fire under her ass to kind of do that stuff because George, like you said, kind of said that to her, nobody cares and all that. So I'm really glad that she was there to kind of take the initiative to kind of preserve all this stuff.
They also do great stuff too, like the filmmaking contest for kids and stuff. That's all.
Yeah.
Encourage people to become filmmakers. It's good.
It's all part of George's legacy. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Paul, real quick, Paul, what all are you bringing with you now?
Let's get to that.
I can't remember
what all you got.
Everything offhand, but I went on Amazon. I have it's an actual gas pump handle for a gas pump at a gas station. I'll have Eugene Clark sign that. A flask, obviously, Billy. The side of the David Clark headset, I'll have Terry Alexander sign that. It's like a new old stock one because the David Clark pilot headsets are $400.
Yeah.
So I just found that one piece, so he'll get a kick out of that.
I can't wait to see his reaction. That's gonna be
that's
really
awesome.
cool.
Yeah,
That's what I told.
He's gonna look at you like you're crazy.
Yeah, Paul sent me a message. It was like, do you think this would be too weird to show? And I was like, no,
Yeah.
dude. Like, I'm telling you, it's a conversation starter. I guarantee you, he's never signed anything like that in his life.
exactly. That's all the confidence I needed. That was perfect.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. I'm bringing a whole pile, shipping them, of screwdrivers just in case John Harrison makes an appearance, because that would be fucking awesome to have him sign a screwdriver.
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
cool.
But I don't know. But besides that, what else? The Fluid 45. Because Michael, you kind of inspired me for that. And then the last minute thing, Brandon, I have my Biohazard 2 PS1 game. So
Sweet.
I'm getting your signature on that, buddy.
I don't know why.
Because it's awesome, man. It's unique. It's the connection. It's the friendship. Like you're a big part of this. You're a part of this history now, man. And that having you sign that game, Romero's commercial and everything, it means a lot to me, and I speak for everyone else, of course. So, and I'm all about getting unique stuff signed, and that just makes it so much better. So,
You make a good point there, Paul. Like, Brandon is part of the history now.
and the future,
And- Yeah. So, like,
I'm sorry.
That-
It reminded me of something I wanted to ask.
no, go ahead, man. I'm just saying, like Brandon's film is part of the I'm so envious of that, because I've always wanted to make that film, or I've always wanted to contribute in that way. And I guess in some small way on YouTube, I guess I just kind of, bullshit or whatever. But like, to actually make a film that kind of documents a portion of George's career in the same, I hope that there's a child or a teenager or something somewhere that sees that documentary and inspires them the same way that I was inspired when I saw Document of the Dead for the first time, or something, where I'm just like, oh, I want to do that. Like, I want to find out more about this George Romero guy, because I guarantee you, like, there's a younger audience for Resident Evil that will discover George Romero through watching a documentary about Resident Evil, and I think that's fucking awesome. So
Yeah, well,
I think it's a
that's-
great point.
I think
and getting
it
this unique
explains-
stuff signed, it's not a joke at all. It's cool because it relates to the film. Not a whole lot of people do that, and I just, I think it's fun. It shows this fan base and community.
So you said you're bringing the Biohazard 2?
Yeah, it's the Japanese PS1 game.
Yeah. So I always find that really wild as a fan of Resident Evil, and I had to point it out to even like major fans of the game. Is like, you realize that George Romero made his mark on Resident Evil 2, not just with the commercial, but one of the zombies from the commercial is the cover of Resident Evil 2 in Japan. And I have my own copy sitting over here on a shelf because of that. It's like my little tribute to George. So so thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you, dude. Because what an incredible love letter to George, and what an incredible love letter to the fans. Seeing, I'm going to tell you, when I saw George Demick tear up, I teared up, man. That was rough. And afterwards, I watched it with my wife, and she loved it, by the way, and she's actually looking forward to meeting you too. But I just remember looking at her, and I was like, do you understand now? Like, do you understand why I do this every year, and why I talk to these people and do this? And she was like, yeah, I do. I get it. And that's, it's because of your documentary. You had this really great way of sort of articulating how we feel. And it was, it was beautiful. It was awesome. So, I wanted to tell you in person, and I guess I'm telling you in person now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, seriously. Well done, Brandon. It was really, really good.
And also, thanks again for stealing thunder from Paul W.S. Anderson. That's an awesome.
Yeah.
Anything you can do.
Not a Paul W.S. Anderson.
Oh,
No, okay. So
Fuck Event Horizon. It's awesome.
I'll give you like one little piece. I don't know how this works within like the grand schemes of things, because but Is anyone here like a really like hardcore Resident Evil fan? Like really hardcore?
The games. Yeah.
Okay. So you know that when they released the original game for the DualShock controller. So we're going to fall of 98. They switched out all the music. And the most iconic piece out of that, it's like considered one of the worst pieces of music ever created for a video game. It's been described as a room full of clowns farting. It's like burr, 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 burr. You know, it's like very. You probably know it, yeah. So
I remember that.
So it's known as basically being like the worst piece of shit soundtrack ever. In the documentary, like when it starts talking about Paul Anderson's film, like you see the poster, it's all, and there's a joke there because it's torn in half. Almost like, you know, like but as it's popping up and the narrator's talking about it, you hear like muffled in the background. Burr, 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 burr. So it's like playing the theme from the game like in the background. It's rather hysterical.
Excellent. I have to go watch it again. I got to see that.
There were a few people that caught it, and they just said, "I love the subtext behind all that in the background."
Excellent.
It's pretty funny. I love Resident Evil 2. I remember I got it not even thinking of George Romero. One of my favorite Nintendo games of all time is Maniac Mansion. So I love the like adventure game stuff, and it's like, oh, adventure games and like zombies. This is like perfect. I was already a George person, and I love the music so much. And I only had 2, and when they did the remaster, I was like, I had to get the special edition because I needed the original music. I could not play it.
Oh yeah.
Love that game.
Yeah, that first piece when they leave the crash site and your nightmare, this was just the beginning of their worst nightmare, and that music comes in, holy shit, that was fucking awesome.
Oh yeah.
It did a tremendous job. I remember using the police when you enter the police station, that
piano piece.
It's
so creepy.
I'm trying to remember. Okay. We used that. We made our own little like crappy Michael Myers type movie with some friends of mine, and we just used the Resident Evil music for it because it was just perfect.
I used a lot of Resident Evil score for my movies back in high school.
I used it for Halloween a lot. I scared the kids with that music outside.
Yeah.
It's great. So
I wonder, was the PS1 game? Was that one of those games where you put the PS1 disc in a CD player and you could listen to the game soundtrack?
I remember that.
I don't know. What do you guys know?
It was Red Book Audio. I don't think it was Red Book Audio.
I remember
it's like Die Hard Trilogy had that.
I remember
Twisted Metal 2, yeah.
Twisted Metal 2, you could put the disc in, it have like Rob Zombie and some other shit
that was
on there.
fucking awesome.
Wow.
I don't know why they don't release Twisted Metal 2. I used to play with my friend and I would have this. We created our own game mode where we put on God mode and we go to New York City, and then the goal was you have to knock the person off of the buildings.
So
which wasn't hard to do.
Something that I learned toward the end, middle of the PlayStation 1's lifespan is with the Twisted Metal games. Obviously, with a disc, it's loading things. But whenever you play something like Twisted Metal, it loads absolutely everything you need for that level. Like, it's not constantly trying to find more data. It's just good. Loading, you start it up. You can press pause, open the disk drive, take the game disc out, put in whatever music track you want. And then close
I remember that. I did that trick with Vigilante.
I remember doing that.
Yeah. So we would do that.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
I really enjoyed in the first game the bad acting that was replaced on the re-release of the game, where Barry's like, "What is this?" And this is kind of like over the top. And the Japanese guys didn't get how funny that was until people were goofing on it and they said, "Oh, we have to reshoot all that for Resident Evil 0, I think it was." And so it's those scenes are all redone. It's a shame because I love the bad acting. It was so great.
So before I forget, I want to ask this question because Brandon brought up a good point about land and diary and survival. And I remember I've watched Survival twice and Diary twice, and I think Land
Real
4
quick,
Yeah.
one time. I gotta stop. Almost got 40 people in the chat watching this tonight. So make sure you give this a thumbs up. Help a brother out. Thumbs up and subscribe, all that good stuff.
I
Go
remember
ahead.
watching Survival and thinking, I don't know why people really hate on us. I didn't find it that terrible at all. I didn't find anything embarrassing with it personally. But rewatching it again, it made me think, A, is it sacrilege? And B, would people sort of change their tune on the film if they redid the CGI? All the bad CGI and all the bullet hits? Do you think if they did a re-release of that would be sacrilege?
No.
Or do you think, and with that,
practical effects?
Not even practical, because it's all CG. You can't re-practical the CG. But if you upgraded the CG, because I'm thinking
make it look better.
Yeah,
I wasn't a fan of the CG, but that wasn't the only problems I had with it. So
There's
That's what I mean.
probably three things that I would probably want in order to make Survival maybe more so, would be so one would be again redoing some of the CG effects. And one thing that would help that, which is my second point, is it needs film grain added into it. It needs to have the weight of film. The digital look, it feels like it's like looking at an AI image. Because when you think of George, when you think of George, you think of how rough and grainy some of his films were. And then the third thing is it needs a Dawn or Day of the Dead score. I don't like the music in it, and from what I had heard, and this isn't to knock Peter Grunwald, but apparently it was offered by Chris Alexander, who also did music. He's the former editor of Fangoria. He wanted to actually give a synth score for Survival of the Dead, but I guess it was nixed by Peter Grunwald, just because when you think about it, that's a very 70s 80s style soundtrack, and I think Peter was going more for no, we should have a very traditional horror score.
Orchestral.
Yeah, for this audience, because it's not the 70s
modern
or 80s.
score. That's the issue that I've always had with those final three Romero films, Land, Diary. I cannot tell you what those scores were off the top of my head. I couldn't hum a score. If there's nothing memorable about them, it was just kind of Land of the Dead is just kind of pum 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 pum, and it's I don't know. There's nothing memorable about it.
Hey, at least it wasn't the Night 90 score. So
yeah, well, at least Night 90 is memorable. Yeah, at least it's something.
In a bad way, though. I don't know. I don't.
I don't know.
Still
I like
remember
too many gratuitous romper sounds. So.
I don't know. I kind of like the opening credits sound to it. I did like some of that weird undulating score that it had.
Night 91?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, what I think it does well, and what it doesn't do well, it doesn't do well. But I'm much more of a fan of atonally, textury kind of music that isn't very diatonic and straightforward, which Day kind of is. And I was talking to Jim about this, and Blasey was there, and I don't know, we might have to have a talk where it's we have to get the day versus night argument on a panel. I don't know, but I don't want to talk about it to death, but I don't disagree, because I was going to say one of the other things that they could probably do is maybe give it a better soundtrack, but I'm curious to hear what people have to think. If you think they just changed, let's say, the bad CGI to better CGI, something a little bit more believable, you think that's really what turns away most of the people's opinion on it, not so much the film itself? What do you think?
I've actually legitimately heard from a number of people that specifically point to the bad CGI as one of the things, because the one thing that even that I had an issue with when I first saw him was George always talked about his hatred and disdain for CGI, and how he never liked it, never wanted to use it, and then you see in Land of the Dead, it's
That is a lot.
He's using CGI. It's like, why is George using CGI? And he spent for the past 5-10 years talking about. Yeah, I totally understand it now. It's like it's efficient. You kind of have to do it now because
it's not just
everything's
CGI.
so expensive.
It's like the gimmick where the guy's head is hanging by his spinal cord,
Right.
and flips it over. What the hell is that?
Well, but at that point, I mean, K and B, what can we come up with? We have all this, history. Yeah, we're the new Tom Savini. Let's think of ways to kill people. And unfortunately, with CGI, you can just, run free.
Yeah.
Well, it's cheaper. It's more efficient.
Yeah.
It's like now it costs so much per day to shoot a film that it's easier to just CGI the blood. Whereas like back in Dawn, they would just do the squib, the blood, and if it didn't work, they'd clean it up, do it again. But that costs time and money. And now you can't do that. It's just easier to say, okay, we'll do it in post. We'll do it CGI in post. And that's what even like Rob Zombie's Devil's Rejects. Like when I first saw that, like the CGI in that, where the blood is just obviously CGI. It's just like in this movie of all movies, where it's supposed to look like a throwback to the 1970s, you're still using CGI. But you realize that it just comes down to budget. It just comes down to time.
Then you have like Walking Dead. Nicotero is very smart in Walking Dead because he still makes amazing prosthetics, and then puts in like green screen patches to fill transparency, so you can actually have skeletal people that are still alive, but are showing impossible geometry in their bodies because they're rotting away. You can only do that with green screen and CGI, but they're still using practical effects around it. It really sells the effect.
And that there's a smart way of doing it like that, and I think that's the problem with the CGI. It's like even when it comes to music, using auto-tune or even like AI stuff. Like I try to use AI. I don't really ever use it, but like trying to clean up images. Like, what do you think this badge number says, and X, Y, and Z. But it has to be used as a tool, even like Melodyne, voice correction
auto-tune, all stuff,
Yeah, you can have a great take, and one note's a little flat, and you go, okay, we'll just adjust that and keep the great take. But, with the CGI stuff, the problem is it's just very cheap and easy. Like, oh, we have 20 days to shoot, bang, boom, okay, we'll do it later. But then the problem is when it's done later, it's never done well. And that I don't understand. I'm sure it's a money thing, but, to look at it and to say, like, is this really passable? It might have just been easier, like with Night's Limitations. We don't have a budget to do X, Y, and Z. How can we, like, putting the tire iron in John Russo's head? You don't see it go in, or you know what I mean? There's like ways around it that you can be creative and still get the impact. And I'd rather it be hidden and your mind sort of fills in the blank instead of you clearly see it and it doesn't look well.
However, if you look at the modern stuff like Love and Death and Robots on Netflix, the CGI level now is so incredibly good. It's like, okay, you can get away with some pure CGI stuff if you really need to. But back then they couldn't. They didn't have the money or the time or whatever. So
let's see if we can make that happen. We can say re-release Diary and Survival and put real practical, not practical, but real like better CGI in there. See if it holds up.
Basically AI at this point, like LCL Colt is saying here, it's like you can kind of do a whole lot with AI now that looks better than any CGI that could have looked back in the 2000s. I made a video this morning because my daughter's been getting in trouble at school. I made an AI video this morning while I was smoking as I was drinking my coffee. When I first woke up, I just looked it up. I made an AI video of Chucky telling her to be good at school. And she was like, wow. And I did that in like 5 minutes. And it was just like...
Have you seen the ads for the taking old photos and it turns it into a cleaned up image of a person actually moving? And that's fucking crazy. That new stuff is nuts.
Scary.
We've talked about this before, man. We know where this shit ends. I've seen Terminator.
It's not good. It's not good.
The problem with this stuff is that there's no law to how people are supposed to use the technology, and there'll be people that use it in a good way, in a thoughtful way, in a problem-solving way, and then there are people that are just using it to, as I always say, I'm not really a big fan of AI only because it seems like a majority of the people that use it are just like, it's just like lazy and cheap content. Like,
and it's theft too. You're stealing famous riffs and famous images to create new content.
It's just, I think a lot of the art part of it is just lazy, and it's a lot of like uncreative people. Like, oh, would it be funny if we have like Donald Trump doing something to Joe Biden, and it's like, well, okay, well, who cares? It's like to put it out there to create a buzz for people to join their Instagram. It seems so.
And then someone says, "Hey, man, good job on that." It's like he didn't do anything.
Be used as a tool to solve certain things, or like to enhance images. Like I said, what I did, like I'm trying to find the officer. We have like kind of a shot of his badge, and I'm just like, maybe I can go into AI and it can look it up and it can give me some information. Maybe it clean it up and do whatever and give me an idea of what that number is. I'm trying to use it as a tool, not in like a creative sort of sense. And I think that's what most people are just using it. You can't tell people, well, you can't use it like this. I think that's part of the issue why it's so like, oh, wouldn't it be really funny if we do like deep fake videos where we'll have, the president saying this stuff, or we'll have, this person saying this. And then unfortunately, there's a lot of people that aren't that bright, that don't know any better, and they just they believe it like and singer. Like, guy, come on, like.
I love AI for like audio cleanup tools, audio extraction tools, useful tools to fix problems, or like the Dawn sound effects collection. I put it on the Facebook page, Living Dead Weekend Facebook page, that I extracted all the dialogue from Dawn, totally separate from the music and all that stuff, and then further cleaned it up in some other tools. I couldn't have done that without the AI tools. So I mean,
that's awesome.
I floated that idea to accidentally came up with that idea with Gary and Jim, because a couple of years ago we were talking about all this stuff, and when they found I could be wrong, it's either the word print or the negative, the audio reels with it. It's supposed to have 3 audio reels: sound, effects, and I should say dialogue, effects, and music. And the problem is the effects track is separate, but the dialogue and the music track are married together. So they can't do a dub of Night because the music is buried in there. And I was talking about the Peter Jackson stuff that he did with the Beatles and the AI separate, which is fantastic. I think that's the stuff that something new. You can clean up these things. You can make new mixes because you're not creating something new. You're just making it easier to mix something that was already there, that was limited by the technology of that time. And Gary said something like, oh, I wonder if we can use this to separate the dialogue from the music, because then you can actually do a dubbed version of Night. So you can still have the music and the effects, but then instead of having subtitles. So like that's a great usage of AI, is being able to separate that stuff in order to, put out something. Who knows where those soundtrack reels, if they even exist anymore. It's the only way.
I've always said it's not the technology. Like, I'm not a big fan of CGI or anything, but George even always talked about, like, it's not the technology itself, it's the way that it's used. Where he's like, if you're using it to take the legs off of Gary Sinise and Forrest Gump, like, that works perfect. But if you're using it as a crutch, it's like, there's a lot of movies still do, I guess, but like he'd always point out like Van Helsing or something back in the day, where like the whole monster is just a CGI thing. It's like that's when it doesn't work. But like you see Gary Sinise and Forrest Gump, and you see like, oh, there's no other way to take the guy's legs off. Like that's kind of the only way you can kind of get away with that.
Auto-tune was used in the music industry for over 10 years before that Cher song came out. It had the hard tuning on to get the robot effect. It was a secret tool for artists with like bad takes, and they couldn't afford to redo it. And no one knew about it unless you're in the industry. And now everyone has access to the damn tools.
And as a guitar player, I don't know how many people know the stuff with guitar, but there's so much fakery involved, because when I do a video, I use live camera audio, and sometimes maybe there's a little mistake or a squeak in there, something that it's natural. But a lot of these Instagram videos, what they do is I can take anybody that doesn't play guitar and basically have them play something one note at a time, and then I can stitch it together. I can record the guitar directly into the computer and then stitch the notes together. I can crossfade and all this stuff, and then I can use an audio thing to make a real guitar sound, and then the person just finds themselves playing it. And you can also quantize. You can take a take, and your timing is off, and the computer knows when it's supposed to be perfect, and do all that kind of stuff. And it's so easy to do, and there's so much of that fakery going on that's like on the Instagram, because it's easy to overplay your hand, like, oh, look at how good I am, and then you can get, and that's like almost the stuff that I see with AI. It's the abuse of these tools. Those tools were there to make life easier.
Abuse, that's a good word for it. It's overly abusive.
I even have a track I made a few years ago that I mistakenly put a bunch of audio samples in it for this little contest online, and I realized, hey, I want to be able to maybe sell this track, but I don't have sample clearance for all these stupid things I put in there. So I can run this song through an AI tool now, strip out all the samples I put in there, and I surgically have the exact song I needed without those dumb samples anymore. So the tools can be very powerful.
Yeah, it's
what bothers me the most is that there's like artists out there, or there's bands out there that are actually putting out records with AI album art, and it looks like dog shit. I don't know if any of you guys like death metal, but Deicide's last record, it was completely AI, the album cover, and it's doing is it's removing the human element out of it.
Even worse than that, do you know about Spotify? Spotify is doing AI tools to take artists they've already caught on their servers, generating new music and generating fake band names and artwork, all from other people's music on there, and selling it to Spotify. It's like, what?
Yeah, that's crazy. But it's when you take the human element out of it. When I look at a piece of art, I know that a human being made it. I know that there's emotion in it. I know when I look at an AI video that it's fake. I can fucking see it. What do they call that? Where something looks human?
Uncanny Valley.
Uncanny Valley.
Oh, I thought it was deep fake.
Yeah, but you can tell.
Fake,
you can look when you look at it, you can tell it's fake, and it does nothing for me. And to me, that's abuse. When you're taking the livelihood away from an artist that could have been paid to create real art for something, and you're replacing it with something. There's like we were talking. There's bands out there that are bands that are making AI music. It's not you. That's not a human being that's doing that. It's bullshit.
There's a sports announcer who died recently, and her family approved them AI recreating his voice for future sports events. He's not even a real guy anymore. Yeah,
that's so insane. But John, you were talking about like guitar players that fake all their shit. Paul, I'm sure you've seen this too. I love watching drum videos, and there's so many like YouTube drummers or Instagram drummers out there that they do the same thing. They sit there and they pretend like they're playing something, and they quantize their drums, especially the kick pedals. Like I love watching like blast beats and speed metal shit, and I can tell sometimes that's not your feet aren't doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no way you can play that fast. That's fucking impossible. Come on.
Some people can, but not
even Meshuggah is not perfect. So
Meshuggah is perfect.
Hey, here he goes.
I was gonna say, watch out, Bulo.
That's my buddy you're talking about. No, but I digress. But again, these are all tools that were used to help, and then at one point it turned into a crutch, and it's like that's what happened with some of the CGI stuff. That's why I'm thinking, especially that some of that CGI stuff back then was just cheap and it just didn't look good. But I wonder if they just re-CGI it now, if people would open it up a little bit more and say, hey, this actually isn't as bad as I thought. I don't know if that would be sacrilege. It would be complete sacrilege if it was like Dawn or something. Like you don't touch.
Oh, that would be blasphemy. For God.
Yeah, so like
put a
I'm not
CGI Jim Crud in there,
We have the 3D effect. That's fine.
Fix his head, guys.
I'm not a Star Wars guy.
He survives. Yeah.
That's the analogy that I was going to use, John. Was what ET when they replaced the guns with walkie-talkie?
The walkie-talkie.
Forget it.
Jim told me about that, and also like he explained to me like the Hans, the shot first kind of thing.
Yeah, he jerks. He does this queer jerk.
And it completely changes the story. And I said, okay, now I get it. Because if I was a Star Wars guy, I would be furious that had happened. And I think I had mentioned they did that with Night, and they said we have the ability to fix all these things for Night. What should we do? And they said the only thing that we should touch, because everyone knows every frame of this film, and George always talks about, the bug that's, that flies through the window. I was like, you're in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. Who cares about a bug that, flew next to the light? So they said the only thing that they're going to fix is synchronizing the hammerheads, because George is using the little, the synchronizer and saying, that looks good. That looks, close. So the only thing that they adjusted in the 4K was all the hammer hits and all the gunshots. They had to match, when you saw a shot come out. And I think that's acceptable. But then when you go past that to say like, well, maybe we should have had Harry Cooper call Ben the N-word. So when his back is turned,
oh my God.
We'll put the AI.
In these sensitive times, there'd be lawsuits up the ass.
But you know what I mean? Like, start to like, well, this is something that we should have done back then. I think now you start to mess.
But see, like when you start overthinking it that way, and you start. That's when you start going the wrong way. Like
George Lucas redoing all of the Star Wars special editions and shit.
Too many. Just too many.
Not making the ones available. which I would say, like, if you say, well, this is my version now, but you can still get this version here, I can sort of meet you halfway. The same thing happened with Gibson guitars. Gibson was like the Cadillac of guitars, but people, when they buy a Gibson in 2005, they wanted it with all of the flaws in it, but the bad this and that in it. So the guy that became the CEO, Harry Jeskowitz, said, okay, well, you know what? We're going to move Gibson into the 21st century. So what we'll do is we'll have robot tuners that tune the guitar for you, and we'll make it weight relieved. And this is the only model that you can buy. If you want the older ones, you have to buy like the reissue. But if you get a newer Gibson, and it flopped, and people are like, no, we want the guitar the way that it is. You don't apply that stuff to that type of guitar. You can maybe make a separate line and say, well, this is the new one, but if you want the old one, get this. So that's why you try.
Go ahead, Brandon.
It'd be really cool for a Night of the Living Dead re-release. You could use AI to do a completely new opening. It still takes place in the cemetery, but it has the burial of the first ghoul with a priest.
Wait a minute. I've seen this already.
The 30th anniversary? Yeah, there you go.
We don't want that shit.
And apparently he was a child killer, by God.
Yeah, exactly.
That brings up a point that I wanted to make about Night being public domain, because I also asked Jim, I said, you need to tell me what actually is technically public domain for Night, because I always thought it was the 35 millimeter copyrighted, the 35 millimeter Continental prints that were made back in the day. But it's like, it's still a gray area, because like the music is copywritten, the likenesses of the people are technically like their own. So I don't think anything is really truly public domain unless you like let it go. And one of the things about that Night, the 30th anniversary, 30th or 40th, 30th, because 30, no, it came out in 98.
30th.
45th.
Yeah. How the fuck did we get on Night of the Living Dead 30th anniversary edition? Like, how did we...
the best version. It's the best version.
They couldn't.
It's the true version.
The reason why they did original music because they didn't want to pay Capitol for the original library music for Night of the Living Dead, because they had to relicense it. So, but they couldn't cut all of it out because the dialogue track was mixed with the music track that I was telling you about. So when they're talking and there's music behind it, they had to keep it there. But anything that was open, they had to get rid of because they didn't want to pay. Even though it's public domain, they still had to license the actual music.
They had to use the Anton LaVey original score.
Yeah, and I actually never heard it. That version. Then it was like it was painful. It was painful.
Yeah. By the way, you mentioned CGI replacement. There was a precedent set for that. The Star Trek original series had a re-release with CGI effects for all of the space scenes and stuff. And it didn't take away from it. I still prefer the old grungy stop motion stuff, but it did look pretty cool to have modern effects. But at least they kept the character and the animation style, kind of, sort of. It didn't totally have brand new scenes. It was just modernized, so it can work.
Have both,
yeah.
Just to not say this is the only one and you can't have the other one.
Exactly.
Well, on the 4K or Blu-ray or whatever, just make it an option in the
just like they did for the special edition Star Wars. They had as a special feature the original uncut.
Yeah, and that works.
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gone in 60 seconds. Forget it. That sucks. The original 1974.
So let's do this.
Ron Howard, right? So Ron Howard.
Let's see if we can make this happen.
Let me see. I had some question. I had a question here earlier from Grondeg. Favorite person you ever met at Monroeville Mall? Love how Landrum met Alpha's story. So, just to wrap up, like, good friends that you've met at the Monroeville Mall Living Dead weekend. How did you guys meet? Like, any good, like, first meeting stories that you guys have?
Yeah, it was Brandon, without question. He was my first friend I made at, like, a Living Dead weekend event back in fall of 2020 at the mall. You know, we talked on Facebook, and we met in the food court, we sat and chatted for a bit while I was eating lunch, and we hit it off, and it was fucking awesome, you know. And before, like, Daniel and Eric and all you other guys, I mean, yeah, Brandon was the first one, and he told me, yeah, he was just starting to get into filmmaking and stuff, and like I said,
and
we
look at him
chatted for
now.
a
Look
bit.
at him now. He's
Yeah.
all grown up. Look at that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. It's all blows up.
It's funny because I was telling my side of the same story earlier. Because
Yeah.
I don't know if you were in here, Paul, for that when I was gushing about your friendship, and you made me a scarf, and I went and got you a T-shirt or a button-down shirt at J.C. Penney's and had it mailed to you because you wanted to
And I
receipt.
still have it.
Yeah. So that's yeah.
Yeah, that was really awesome, man.
This was really awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. And last year, man, I mean, that Thursday night when I went to the mall, the music came on and we gave each other a big hug, and oh fuck, I mean, yeah. George, what can I say? I mean, this is
really
what he does.
lovey-dovey here. Really lovey-dovey. We all. That's the thing,
it's gotta
though.
be the beards too.
Yeah. That's the thing, though. It's like, you know, it brings us all together, you know, and
it really does. Yeah.
It's like I've said for so long on this channel. It's like it's the one place you go and you meet people that speak your language. You know, you don't. Nobody else. You can't go to work and talk about, hey, what'd you think of Season of the Witch, or nobody talks about that shit. But it's like the first year I went to Living Dead Weekend in 2020.
Wait. Jack's wife.
Jack's wife.
I saw Joe.
I'm telling you, it's two separate films. It's two separate films.
dumbass.
There's Season of the Witch and there's Jack's wife.
I'll pull out my VHS copy of Season of the Witch. It says it right on it.
As said in Coming to America, his mama called him Clay. I'm gonna call Clay. George called it Jack's wife. I'm gonna call it Jack's wife.
You're forgetting Hungry Wives.
Hungry. That's what I'm going for. Hungry Wives. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like the first year I was there. I was in the elevator going at the DoubleTree, going up to my room, and Daniel Lowry walks in. I'm like, oh shit, it's Doodles of the Dead. So I just look at Daniel. I'm just like, hey man, I love Doodles of the Dead. And he's like, oh wow, I love your tattoos. And it's just like, okay, we're friends now. Like, and then after that, I went and bought something from his table. It's the simplest. So like, if you're on the fence about going, if you're not sure, you're like, oh, except for people say, oh, I don't know anybody there. I don't want to go by myself. Blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, you just come, and we all. Like, just talk to someone, throw a rock, and you'll find somebody that you'll instantly become friends with. Like, it's.
I had fun talking to security guards the night they had that special screening after the film thing, and just talking about the history of the mall, what they see every day at the mall. They're really cool guys, and they even told me we were talking about all the crazy stuff behind the scenes when you do the tour, and there's just so many catacombs to get lost in. And I said, have they ever found any dead bodies back there? They said, yeah, one time. Don't tell anybody. So here I am telling somebody. But there has been a dead body in the back of the Monroeville Mall somewhere. So
great.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've always said this is the one convention where I can just honestly be myself.
Yeah.
Like here in Wisconsin, it's not easy. So I can't fucking
Nobody
wait.
quite understands.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally feel that.
What was the question about people that we met in terms of the actors and people, or
just people in general?
Anybody,
just friends you've met. I mean, I guess you talk about meeting Jim at a Living Dead weekend and what that's meant to you.
Well, I wasn't even going to use Jim. I was going to use probably like Gary. I was going to tell a funny story about Tim DeLeo.
Okay.
I'll maybe tell a bunch really quickly, but it was that year. And I don't know anybody, and I'm walking around. This is the same year, so I go to Gary, and I was telling Gary how I met Jim with the 2 staircases, and he, my Facebook post, and he goes, "No, that house only had 1 staircase." And I went, "Well, I'll show you in the." So he goes, "My brother will know," and this was on Russ's birthday. I'm sorry, it was Gary's birthday, and then we went over to Russ. And then Russ gave him these cupcakes, and they all sang happy birthday. I was like, that's crazy. Like, I don't know anybody here except Jim. And like, I'm in the middle of this kind of thing. And then I tell him, and Russ goes, yeah, that house had 2 staircases. And Gary's like, sorry, I don't want to be like that guy, but like, I saw it in
Round
the film.
one,
so.
fight.
And with Tim DeLeo, I was talking to Mickey Anderson. I was talking to her about sitting next to her at the Night 90 thing, and I saw that Tim was there. And he sort of looked at me, and I felt bad because, again, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know the whole thing. And I always thought, it's hard to, sorry to say that Tim might have been a little off. This is before I, hung out with him, not hung out with, but, sat at his table, whatever. So I thought maybe he was a little, like, out there or whatever. So I didn't want to feel like I was disrespecting him, so I said, well, how do you feel about your performance in Day of the Dead? And he goes, what do you mean by that? I went, uh-oh. Like, I'm here for 2 minutes, and I already, like, upset this guy, and just,
You're pissing
like...
people off already.
Right,
yeah,
now he's dead.
Well, like they say, Joe Pilato, like, overacting, did you feel that you did too much or didn't do enough? And, gave me his, well, I thought, it was the end of the world, whatever. But it was just that moment because I didn't know him and I didn't know how he was going to take it because I thought he was a little like off. That like, oh my God, I said this little thing and I set this whole person off. So that was that moment really sticks out. But meeting Jim wasn't anything that like spectacular because I didn't know what he did. We talked about Alan Holdsworth for like 3 hours and then, hey, you're going to be at the VIP thing? No, I'm going to go back to my hotel room. Oh, here you go. Oh, okay. But that was that. But in terms of like me feeling a part of it, it would actually be the Chris Stravakis. Because when Jim invited me back in October, I only knew Jim and I knew a bunch of those people, and I'm sitting there, and now I'm like, do I deserve being here just because I know somebody? And I knew Chris because of the library music stuff. Oh, Chris, I know your name from the library music stuff. And because of how gregarious and how nice he is, he immediately put me at ease, like I've known him for so long. And hey, you're family now. And that's all I needed. That was just like uncertainty.
Yeah, he's so fucking cool.
Yeah, I'll say that about Chris. Like, that's a guy I don't mention enough on here and really talk about too much. I should talk about him more because Chris is like, I never met him until last year at the Garf table on Sunday. And they were just kind of like getting rid of shit. They were just like, here, like, here, what do you want? Like, take it. We don't want to take it back with us. And Chris Stavrakis was there at the table and he just came out and we just started talking for like just talking, having a full-on conversation. I was just like, dude, like I've never met you in my life. Like I don't, but he's just like comes out from behind the table and he's just like, okay, well, what do you guys want? What do you what'd you win? And Will spun the wheel and it's like you're supposed to land on something. He gave him $5, spun the wheel and then stopped it specifically on something like one of the big prizes. And Chris was like, oh, looks like you won that. All right, well, here you go. And then take this with you. And it's just like, he's just the coolest guy in the world. Like, so yeah, Chris is an awesome dude.
And he's been doing it for so long. He obviously, he was there at the 93 Jamboree, so it's not like he's just a guy that just started, hanging out with George and all that kind of stuff. So the fact
he worked on the Night remake.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He did. Yeah. Yeah,
I'm not trying to correct it. It's just that seems to be something that gets overlooked, even by him. Like he's not very like forthcoming. Like he'll like nonchalantly be like, "Well, then I worked on Night of the Living Dead," and
I know he did like Sudden Death.
Like Ghost Rider. I just saw that the other day. I'm like, I fucking love that show.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah,
he doesn't give himself enough credit for like the kind of stuff that he's worked on.
Yeah.
He's a super cool guy. I didn't get a chance to meet him at LDW, but I reached out to him on Facebook, and I've had hour-long discussions with him on Facebook about library music and stuff.
Yep.
Super nice guy.
And that's why like I needed that. I needed someone to like make me feel like it's okay. Like you're a part of this thing. And without that, it probably would have been like really insecure. Like I'm a big fan. I didn't know then what I know now. But that was the start of like, I didn't want people to look at me because I'm doing this kind of stuff and I'm relatively new in the scene. Like I didn't earn to.
That's how I felt, man.
Yeah.
That's how I felt with doing the documentary. Cause it's like, who's this guy to be, but to do a documentary about George's legacy and stuff. But then, everyone just seemed like so welcoming, and that's the community of that place. Even last year, just for like funny Chris stories is, I had to take him back to his house to get something, and then this is during the convention. He was like, "Yeah, we got to go now." So he's like, "Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know, like 25 minutes up the road." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, this will be quick." So we're like driving, and I think it was like 45 minutes one way, and then we're like looking through his house for the item that he needed, which he had since misplaced in the week since we had talked. So it was like this whole adventure, and then with traffic and stuff, like at one point my wife is texting me like, "Where are you? It's been like 90 minutes. I thought you said it was like right up the road." I'm like, like I don't know, but I was like, it was a lot of fun. So it was like Chris and I like, shoot the shit for like almost 2 hours, like driving all over the place. So it was a lot of fun. But
he's a great sculptor too. He does really good work.
Oh man, he's an amazing
very
sculptor.
good artist.
Unbelievable.
He'll probably have because I'm sure he's got a ton of great, and he's so funny. He's just so witty.
He is. He's a goofy guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
he actually has George's. He has George's watch that he wore in his later years when he had the vest and stuff. He showed that to me at the one hotel last year. I'm like it's, and you can see it in like documentaries and like that wristwatch. Like, holy shit, that's fucking awesome.
Huh. Yeah. I feel like I remember hearing that somewhere, but you saying that, I kind of feel like I remember hearing that. That's pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But Eerie Guts had a good question. Anyone else get the Dawn of the Dead Monroeville Mall cut bootleg floating around? Used AI Ken Foray voice for the opening, but was also cleaned up with AI and had some weird eye / facial blurring.
Yeah, I gotta say, luckily I have the extended mall hours cut on DVD. I got in like 2014 at Cinema Wasteland, and it's just on a CDR or a DVD-R, and that's like perfect. But yeah, way before all the AI crap with that. But I've heard that is absolute like dumpster fire.
What did they do
nice.
at the beginning?
It's
a couple
nice
years ago.
Yeah, it's nice if it's something that you wanted to do yourself, but the person was like trying to actively selling it, like, this is the best version of the Dead you'll ever see. And the AI of Ken Foray's voice was really good. I had gotten clips of it, but the person I got clips from was also showing me that there was like stuff from Night from there. There was like the television, the Chuck Craig footage that was used in it. So like it's kind of lame to sort of take these things and put it together and say like, well, all the other versions of Dawn suck. This is the best version to have. If it's something you wanted to make for yourself that you enjoy, maybe pass it to your friends.
Yeah,
perfectly okay. But it was just a money-making kind of nonsense,
I remember Jim getting a whiff of that, and I saw him on comment on one of that guy's posts, and was like, "Oh, are you using Night of the Living Dead stuff? Oh, we need to talk." I was like, "Oh shit, Jim's got a hold of him." Uh-oh.
What was the opening that had Ken Foray's voice?
It was just like a narration of the entire story up until that point for Night of the Living Dead. I mean, to Dawn of the Dead. We talked about Night of the Living Dead. I think it uses some
like a backstory.
Yeah, okay. And that's why it uses like images and stuff from Night of the Living Dead to get into like like a little pre thing into the ghouls rose and then blah blah blah, the dead walk. But that's what I mean. Like I'm saying, I hate to say it, but the AI Ken Foray sounds fantastic. Like if you didn't know if it was AI,
it did.
It does.
It sounded just like him, but it was like it was like a narration over like an opening crawl, right? Like it was.
Yeah, because it was like a to get into Dawn.
Yeah, I'll take the Japanese space explosion any day.
Yeah. Now the Japanese space explosion. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And that is not CGI.
That was legit.
That's a real space explosion.
I love the stuff Jim does on Facebook, going after people talking shit about soundtracks and their value and what tracks are missing, and there's some so-called experts on there. He just goes on. It's so funny.
That's the guy Boogie Juice, Darren something.
Is this one guy? Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
I remember that guy. He was
selling all those DeWolf records for a long time. Even before I got my DeWolf stuff, I was interested in it, but I never pulled the trigger on the vinyl stuff. And I remember that he was selling them, and then Jim was telling me, like, yeah, there's this guy in England that had all this DeWolf stuff, and Jim was buying it, and the guy was like, "Why are you buying all this stuff?" He's like, "Well, because it's used in Dawn of the Dead, and that's why he So, oh yeah, it's in donut. Now it's 15 times the price and all that stuff. And he would always use the photo of George holding Spine Chiller. And that's Jim's photo.
Yeah.
Jim bought that Spine Chiller and saw George at one of the Chiller Expos and got him to sign it and use that photo. So he was just using, that stuff and trying to raise and that's why I would have these debates with him. Like, it's not nearly worth all that stuff that you're saying. You could find it on Discogs for, some of the cheaper stuff for $10. But is the Waxworks release complete? Technically, no. But there's a point where it's like, because George was just throwing these tracks together and adding and subtracting, and there's like, there's 10 seconds of one of my favorite pieces, Slow Repose 2. It's like, do you want to pay for the license for all 4 minutes of it when only 10 seconds is used? And then try to find a place for it on a vinyl that has a limited, you know what I mean? So certain of the smaller tracks had to not be used, but all the main stuff is there, and that's why that guy was, drawing a fit. And it's like, well, you're being, I say, penisy about this stuff. Jim will get a kick out of that, but it's like overly, penisy.
Plus, a lot of that stuff on the DeWolf website, you can just listen to it for free.
Yeah, especially, and that record, the one that I told you about, Paul, that I gave you a heads up on, the really
Sun High,
yeah. You can, I said, you can also listen to the whole thing on DeWolf's website. It's an expensive vinyl, but you can also just download it there.
I didn't pay that much for mine. It's in rough shape and there's some scratches on it, but just having that one, like, what is it? 85% of that is from Dawn of the Dead. So
I would say 85, but a good amount.
It's a good chunk of it. Yeah.
It's a good record, and that's why I knew you were interested in this. It's like, this is as cheap as it's going to get. I got lucky that Jim gave me one. I said, this is what happened. You can see my Nintendo games over here. I was only focusing on buying the American games, and one of my favorite games of all time is a game called Mr. Gimmick, which only came out in Europe. And it couldn't be played in a normal Nintendo because it uses the PAL,
top order.
Well, it would work, but like the graphics wouldn't work. They would glitch out because it's coded for PAL systems over there. And a friend of mine gifted me a Nintendo that I could play every Nintendo game on it. And I said, thank you, but now, fuck you. And I was like, well, why is that? It's like, well, now I have no excuse not to buy the original version of Mr. You just cost me $700. So Jim gifted me this expensive vinyl, and I said, well, thank you, but now fuck you, because I can't just have one. Now I have to buy them all. Now I have to buy the Electric Banana. I have to buy all those now. So you're doing a good thing, costing me money, because I can't just.
Do you have that rare gold cartridge that everyone goes crazy for?
No, I mean that's like crazy expensive.
It's $1 million. $1 million.
Gold, so.
Yeah.
Only 26 of them made, so they're at the last price of it was like $20,000.
Oh Jesus!
Rick's asking. Says I take it they are all sold out for the event tickets. No, for Living Dead weekend, quite a bit of it's sold out. The tours I think are almost pretty much sold out. I think the Sunday tour may still have a couple of tickets left.
3 left for Sunday, I think.
Oh, I thought they were all sold out.
Yeah, me too.
But getting
I'm not
into
sure.
the event,
I'm hearing back and forth, but
getting into the event, there's no limit.
You can still get the weekend passes and all that. I think there's still plenty of tickets left for that.
Long gone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which Synth, I know Synth is still on the outside looking in. She's trying to get some VIP tickets.
I was broke when they were on sale. I was broke, and then they all of a sudden ran out, and I go, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
So if anybody has any tickets that you're not going to make it, you want to sell, you want to get rid of, let them know. Or we're going to have to sneak them in. We're going to have to, we're just going to have to sneak them in under the cover.
On this goes to bribe me, Larry, like a donation or something.
Yeah.
So
is everybody, we'll see you.
Is everybody else here going to the VIP?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Sweet.
Well, I have my in. I hate to
there you go.
Like that, but I'm lucky. That's why I said, look, if I gotta like pull my own weight, that I'm lucky enough to do all these things. So
yeah. Well, slide Synth in with you.
I told Larry we need to get Synth a media pass or something, because that dude's going to be documenting.
Yeah, record the whole damn thing anyway.
Yeah,
so
it's like he needs a media pass or something like shit.
Because technically, I'm not gonna. I know they're worried about capacity, right? I'm not gonna eat the food because they're probably not gonna have anything I want. I don't care about the swag bag, right? I mean, it's cool, but I don't really need it.
Oh, you actually get?
You get some
plenty of
swag
space
bag.
for VIP.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know you
Slide
got
on it.
So if it's just the alcohol and a little couple snacks here and
tap it.
there, you know, I'm not going to be a nuisance. So
Just wants to hang, my man.
Exactly.
I mean, the best
it's all
part
about
is
the hang.
just Nicotero is just hanging out there taking selfies, and he's just a big kid. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah. He's a huge fan. He's still just a big fan of all the films. So
I got to talk to him about guitar stuff because I saw him in September in Massachusetts. I was doing a night thing, and he was there. And it was Jim and I and Kyra and Judy Ridley, and we were all just hanging out at like the thing. And he was there, and he just stopped by and we was BSing. And Jim started talking to him about guitar stuff that I do, and he's wearing a Fender shirt. And the next morning when I saw him, because the convention wasn't in the hotel, it was off-site, and he was there, and I'm waiting for Russ because I was gonna have to drive him. And he's like, "Oh, you're gonna walk to the thing?" I said, "No, I gotta pick up Russ." He goes, "Oh, I wanted to talk to you about guitar stuff." So I was like, "All right, we'll see if we can make that happen." And then he left because he wasn't there the whole time on Sunday. So I was like, "All right, I gotta talk."
Terracon? Is that what it's called? Terracon?
It might have been. It was the end of
Like
September.
It's like Ice Nine Kills is.
They weren't there. No, they weren't there. It was in Worcester or around Worcester, Massachusetts. I don't know if it's the same one. Maybe it was, but I don't think that they were there. The end of September of last year, they had the Night People. That's where I said John Russo told me to get a life.
That sounds like a John Russo quote.
And I
Get a
blame
life.
Chris for that. That wasn't even my fault. I was talking to Chris about the Image 10 release forms and where they were. And then, I know someone that knows John Russo. John, what do you think about this stuff? Who wants to know? And I was like, I knew not
Hold
to
on
ask.
a second. I have to say something. The guy who made Santa Claus said, "Get a life." Come on.
Like I said, we kind of know the details and stuff. So it's like the closer you get, so that stuff will I'm sure will make its way into the book. But I mean, it's
I love John. I love John Russo. He's given me a lot of entertainment over the years.
We did hang out at the party the night before, and I saw him hanging out and having a good time. Oh, maybe he's not. Maybe he's okay. And then the next day is when he told me. I told Kyra, and she's like getting all angry. I was like, "Don't worry, like it's not that big of a deal." But
it's just John. It's just
but
it's just old Jack.
When I was talking to Tim Ferrende about that, and he said, John Russo, when it's for some reason when it's involved in Night, he's like a different person. He's very nice, and then for some reason, when things get involved, and that's why I think he's a little bitter about it. And it's his own fault. He sold his shares on Image 10, and is making life difficult for other people for this and that. And it was like, dude, he had the camera negative the whole time. He had the answer to getting the copyright in his garage the whole time. So like you're doing all this silly stuff and making people's lives harder for certain things.
Well, hey, John Russo's going to be at Living Dead Weekend this year, everybody. So
you're the Night People.
He will be there. I've always, I always realized that. Like, kind of noticed that when I was at Living Dead Weekend. He's like, his table is on the complete opposite side of the mall from all the other, Night of Living Dead people.
Because they know, and that's what happened with TerraCon. Is that, like, it was supposed to be Judy, Russ, and Kyra, and then John, snurred his way in, which is fine because the promoter's like, "Oh, we have more Night People, so we'll put him in the middle." What are you going to do? So we had to do some table swapping, and that's why, because other people know better to make the peace there.
Everybody knows better. But I mean, we still got a ton of people watching, but we've been going for over 3.5 hours, guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight, giving me your time.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, man.
It's almost 4 hours. It's
Yeah.
almost probably 2:00 in the morning for quite a few of these folks.
They want to hear us.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We're a couple of weeks away, guys. We'll all be seeing each other in person. We'll all hang out in person and celebrate and hey, maybe sadly for the last time, but
a group cry at the end of it, so that
we'll all cry together. But it's been fun. I appreciate you guys taking your time coming on tonight and head walking down the road to Living Dead Weekend with me. But anybody got anything they want to promote, anything they got coming up on their channels, or anything they got planned for Living Dead Weekend, or anything and everything? The floor is yours, guys. Anything you got coming up?
Well, I was going to ask you guys really quick before we go. Does anybody have any kind of like a specific itinerary that of things they want to do, or anything besides? I know we talked a little bit about autographs, but is there anything you guys are wanting to do, like specifically?
I was just saying this year, the way it is, I mean, this is my first year renting a car too. But I'm going to spend as much time at the mall as I possibly can, apart from going out to eat at other restaurants, maybe. I'm going up and down the biker hill like 10 fucking times in my own vehicle. I cannot wait for that.
Got to go by the Red Barn House too.
Oh yeah, I'll throw that in there. What the hell? But of course, hitting up like Music Around, Half Price Books, which is right up from the mall.
Yeah.
I think there's another like used media store in Monroeville.
If you get a chance, go to Eads in Pittsburgh, downtown Pittsburgh.
Yep, I remember you talking about that last year.
Eads, holy shit! Like it's
like
story
5
after
floors.
story, like 5 floors of just amazing stuff. It's just cool to fucking just go in there and look around. So that's a shout out. I give everybody check out Eads. It's on it's downtown Pittsburgh. I can't remember what the fucking street that it's on, but on EIDES Eads. Check it out. Eads Entertainment.
I missed last time I was there the right parking garage to get the top of the late image building. Is that hard to get to nowadays, or can you easily drive up there still?
It's easy to get to.
You can still get up there, yeah.
Okay.
There's an elevator. You can take it up to like the 5th or 6th floor, and you got a perfect view of it.
Cool. Okay, cool.
We need to get up to that. We need to get up that roof. Period. But
yeah.
We'll figure that out when the time comes.
Yeah,
I know. Me and Matt, we got. I think me and Matt are going to get tattoos on the same day. We're going to get the Monroeville Mall logo. Tattoos
awesome.
at that tattoo shop there, right in the mall. So
right by Red Robin.
Yeah, we got that plan. The guys, I think the guy's actually coming in specifically for us on that Sunday. So
so he's booked up on Saturday, but he's a huge Romero fan too, and it's like hallowed ground to him. So he was totally cool when he found out what we wanted to do. He's like, oh yeah, we'll come in on a Sunday and knock it out. So he's already reached out to me on Instagram, and we're talking about it. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, man, me too. Anybody else got anything specific, Brandon, Seth? Anything you're going to be doing this year?
Well, one thing is I am just going to be walking around. I spend the majority of the weekend just walking around and talking to people. It's my favorite thing to do, is just talk to the people I know and new people I meet. So I will say, for anyone listening, if you see me, sometimes I don't even remember like faces, but definitely if you see me, stop and talk to me. I think some people think I'm going to be mean because I just look mean at times, but I'm actually like I just walk around just but I'm actually very nice.
You have the resting bitch face is what it is.
That's what I call it.
People tell me the same thing too. It's like, sometimes you just look really mad. I'm like, no, I'm just probably staring off into space thinking about something completely random. They're like, no, you look really mad. I'm like, oh.
That's so. Yeah, I'm just gonna be streaming up a storm, so just watch the streams if you're not there and enjoy vicariously, and look for more content upload later because again, signal loss and whatever the hell. So.
And I've got some drum covers coming, so look forward to that. Videos are all done.
I'm just going to be excited, talking to people again, seeing Mike, Gornick, and when I emailed Dubinsky, I didn't know if he was going to be there, but I know sometimes
I hope Tom's going to be there.
Say hi to Mike, so I'd like to talk to him and some of the other people. And I did ask Jim about this last time. I wanted to be sure, but he did say it was okay for me to show any of the Super 8 film that I have. So
sweet.
The problem, the good news and the bad news is, the good news is he said, yeah, I can show it to anybody, which is fine. And I've only showed it to like one person, because there was one person from the group that was there at Chiller. Because before that, I haven't done any of the events without having that, really. But now I had asked Jim, he's like, yeah, I could basically show it to anybody. So I'm like, all right. But the bad news is he says that there's not going to be that many of his helpers. So I don't know how busy I'm going to be. So I don't know, like, it's not like, okay, while I'm in the middle of, doing something, I can't just, here, look at this thing. So if I have free time, I'll show it to anybody.
Let me know. Yeah, you show me anytime, anywhere. You let me know. Just I'll be there. Like, just let me know.
At the VIP thing, because this is all, well, it's on my laptop, but this is where I keep all my work. I got all the photos, everything on here. So if I need to show somebody something, or I find an article, it's all on here. So this is my, like, everything that I've done, all the news articles that I found, and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I go there and say, hey, look at this thing, and I, blah, 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 blah. So if I have time, I'm more than happy to show anybody, what it looks like.
Yeah, you just let me know. I'll be there. Let me know when. But yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming on tonight. Brandon, it was a pleasure finally getting you on here, my man.
Thank you for having me.
Looking forward. Yeah, man, absolutely. Anytime. I look forward to finally meeting you in person. I'll see all you guys in person here in a couple of weeks. Living Dead Weekend.
Can't fucking wait.
Yeah, man. It can't get here soon enough.
Brandon, did we meet last year? Do you remember?
We may or may not have.
I can't remember.
Well,
it's the easiest answer.
I'll try and track you down there.
I won't be too hard. I won't be too hard to find. I just don't know how busy. And I feel bad because, like, I'll be talking to somebody and I'm setting up pictures and doing this, and I'm like, I don't really mean to ignore anybody. I just I'm doing this kind of stuff for everybody else, and I want to. That's why I want to have time to talk to everybody. I just hope I'm not.
You're a busy man, dude. We get it.
Yeah, but it's I do it out of respect for these people, because Jim has 18 clients there, and he's only going to have 4 other helpers. So, putting the tables together, putting the photos together, picking up people and stuff.
Well, we're going to have somebody there that's specifically due to you, because of you. Sharon Carroll's going to be there again this year, so that's going to be pretty cool.
It'd be really nice
I'm glad to see, because I met her last year, and you could tell she was having a blast. It's like she had no idea that this was a thing. Like, she was like, oh my God, like, I had no idea that this was, like, people want my autograph? Like, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah, can you sign this? Can you sign these 3 things I have for you to sign, please? And she's like, wow, okay, yeah. Sweetest looking lady. So
I figured I'd show that off. This is based on This is based on Bernie Wrightson's concept art for The Tyrant.
Oh wow, that's rad.
Fuck, that's awesome.
So this is actually done by his son John. It was done as a tribute to his father.
That's
nice.
Cool.
Wow.
Is it a little transparent? Around the neck?
No, I think it might just be the shine.
Oh, okay, I can see it now. Okay.
Yeah, it's very well done.
That's cool.
Great.
Yeah, I might have to bring you back on soon, Brandon, for just collecting the dead, just to see what all you got.
Oh, you just wait. I can't reveal what I'm getting, but I think once some people see it, they're going to be like pissing themselves.
Is it for Resident Evil?
I can't say what it is just yet, but let's just say it's going to. More than one fan group is going to be pleased by seeing it.
Sweet.
Okay.
Well, you know who your next person is for collecting the dead, besides Matt Landry.
like the meme, like the meme of Fry from Futurama. It's like, shut up and take my money. That was literally me. I was like, shut up and take my money. So I was just like, what do you want? He like told me. I'm like, here, have more. Send it to me now. Like that's how it was. It was just like, I'll give you even more. Just rush it.
Shut up and take my money.
Let's talk more shipping.
All right, now you've piqued my curiosity. So you're definitely coming back on here soon. Whenever you get it, you're showing it off because I got to see
what was the dark half thing. Didn't you say you had something about the dark half?
The light half?
Yeah, the new 4K that came out from Vinegar Syndrome. I'll wait. We're about 4 hours into this thing. I'll have Larry on next week. We'll talk all about it. For those of you who wondered why I made the impromptu trip to Pittsburgh a couple months ago, that kind of deals with that. But gonna have Larry on June 1st. Larry and Daz are gonna come on for the official Living Dead Weekend preview show. Weekend before the event, so we'll talk all about it. But yeah, we that's kind of what that had to do with. I went up there and kind of helped Larry with some different projects for that 4K release. So
I will say that a ghoul that we found in Night of the Living Dead also appears in the dark half, and I know where he is. So I've got him cut out. We'll put him on the thing. That'll be actually the day that we're putting him up is the Sunday of the Living Dead weekend.
Okay, very cool.
Very apropos.
But yeah, well, I'll wait and I'll let Larry. I'm just gonna let Larry tell what all he wants to tell about that. But yeah,
I just want to say one thing for anyone who's on the fence about LEW and what they're gonna do, or are they gonna have any fun, or people are gonna be cool. I've been an Expo junkie since the early '90s with Macworld and SIGGRAPH and NAMM and all kinds of stuff, and LDW is by far the most fun I've had, meeting cool people and hanging out and stuff.
Absolutely.
So. It is. It's fucking awesome. It's the perfect community and convention.
Yeah, and this year especially, don't wait.
Yeah.
Now is the time.
This year especially, do not wait. Now is the time. That'd be the perfect thing for this year. But I'm telling you, if you're sitting here right now watching this at 2:00 in the morning on the East Coast, and you're still on the fence, it's like, yeah, now's the time. If you're a big enough fan to be watching this 2:00 in the morning, like now's the time to do it.
What was Arnold's line from Total Recall? Get your ass to Mars. Get your ass to Living Dead weekend.
That's right.
Get your ass to Monroeville.
Hey, speaking of now is the time, does anyone have that typewriter he used in the movie?
I feel like that'd be a Paul Farver special, but I don't think so.
Well, I actually did look it up the other day. Funny you mention it. And zero, I got no information. So the search continues.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
So we don't have to worry about the mall going away because Paul could just build it.
Yeah. Eventually, we'll just have everything. We can get it all together. But again, thanks you guys. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Good fun.
Thank you guys in the chat. I know I didn't get to many of your comments tonight, but you guys, it's been a full house pretty much all night long. It's been, you guys have been great. I look forward to seeing a lot of you guys Living Dead weekend this year. Some of you guys as being your first time. I always look forward to that. I always look forward to being with a first timer and just kind of being like, oh, okay, like I want to experience this again through you, like that type of thing. But yeah, thank you guys in the chat. You guys have been great. Check out shop.alpharomero.store. Some shit in there if you guys want to buy it.
You can tell the new people it's like the scene in Hoosiers where they go to the basketball court and they're like,
yeah,
it's like.
Exactly. It's exactly like that.
Yeah.
But thank you, John. Thank you, Synth, Brandon, Matt, Paul. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Good to see everybody.
Thanks.
See you soon.
You guys have a great rest of the night, a great rest of the week, and stay prepared. But always stay scared.